All right, guys, welcome back to the Go&FUN esports tournament here between our next best of three, between the Raving Raptors and between Divinity, to see who's going to make it to the next stage in our playoffs here, or who's going to fall to the losers bracket and have to fight their way back in to try to make it to the grand finals.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that both of these teams have high expectations from themselves. They're very high ranking on the solo queue ladder, and as such, a loss here, even though it would not force them out of the tournament, will be heartbreaking for either of these two teams and make the road to the finals so much more difficult for themselves. And in such a high pressure first matchup of the day, or of the playoffs for these two teams, I can definitely tell you guys that they're going to be trying their absolute hardest.
Especially with the fan favorite such as the Raving Raptors. But as we are getting into the pick and bans, we have Aurelion, Scylla, Talia, and Rengar banned away by the Raving Raptors, with Ziggs, Ivern, and Camille being taken off the table by Divinity. Lulu, first pick since she was left on the table, but then the Kog'Maw and Gragas being locked in by Divinity.
Well, you were talking some hype about Kog'Maw in the last game, and it looks like we're going to see it, but it won't be paired with a Lulu because that got snagged away by RVR, and it also won't be paired with something like the Ivern, which you said you really wanted to see. Yes. Which is very, very interesting right here, and I wonder how they sort of forge the rest of their draft around it. If I had to guess, they'd go for something like the Karma as a support, and, a Shen too in the top lane. If they do wind up locking that in, would make Ventus basically just this walking ball of death in a million shields.
Yeah, that would be very nice to see, especially on a Kog'Maw. You want to play that Juggernaut comp, and with the Shen, you're going to really be able to help him out with survivability in the fights, because the likes of a Poppy and a Zac are going to try to go for some hard engage onto that backline, as we do also get to see the Vladimir being hovered for that mid lane.
Yeah, and I'm going to go some next level theory crafting right here and say that, if Divinity were just to draft this entire 100% Juggernaut comp, if Gruntless Gary was able to land some sick Keeper's Verdict onto him and just knock him completely out of the team fight, that would be pretty devastating for Divinity. But the Vladimir will be very nice because not only is it going to be this beefier frontliner, it can dive into the end backlines as well. It also has the Hemoplague, the damage amplification, and we know that Kog'Maw players really do love to go for Runon's Hurricane, and if you can, get a couple of auto attacks while people are still affected by that Hemoplague, the damage he's going to be dealing, while already absurd, is going to be absolutely through the roof.
Yeah, well, Runons and the Genzus, you cannot forget about that, because that brings a little bit more of that AP to the table, gonna really amplify that magic damage, as you were saying. But on the flip side, we get to see that Caitlyn and Orianna being locked in for Mechanics and for Dona Dominator.
Yeah, I think the Caitlyn Lulu lane down bottom is going to be very, very strong, and we'll try to sort of keep down this Kog'Maw during those early levels. Something we're also going to have to be tracking is the Zac pathing, if he's going to be able to make these ganks actually work out, because, one of the reasons why we don't see too much Zac is because of the changes where it's so much easier to see where he's going to be jumping to with the elastic slingshot. There's a lot more room to play around that, but you're also up against a fairly immobile AD carry. And if, Vortex plays his cards right, if he lands those good abilities, it can be a very good thing here for the Raving Raptors if they're able to shut down this Kog'Maw early on and allow them to sort of accelerate the pace of the game before he can come all online.
Completely agree. As we get to see the Karma locked in, that is something you said that you would have liked to see in that support role, and it is, in fact, going to be the case.
Yeah, and I'm liking both these compositions right now. There's some more of those oddball picks in the Zac, even the Poppy we don't see all too much nowadays, but I think both compositions are going to be very strong. I think they also accomplish a lot of the same things. You got two beefy, tanky top laners. I'd probably give the advantage over towards Transparent on the Shen, but two displacement, chaos-oriented junglers. You got late game scaling mid laners, AD carries. It's all really the same across the board with some small little tweaks here and there, and it's going to really come up to these teams' execution. When they're both playing such similar style compositions, the better team will definitely win and set the tone for the rest of the series.
And it will be key to see how Donut Dominator plays around with Vortex, because it's going to have a really nice ball delivery system on that Zac. Going to be able to set up some nice shockwaves for the team, and if they're able to land several 2, 3, 4-man ultimates onto the key members such as Ventus, such as even KMS or Starforger, we can really see this swing right over for the Raving Raptors. But with that, we're going to take a short little break, watch some commercials as we get ready for the game.
Hey, officers, what's going on?
We're in the middle of an epic car chase.
Is that why you're moving in slow motion?
Epic car chases are always done in slow motion.
That's a bit cliche. Going for a donut.
Donuts.
Smart.
The moment the juice gently drips down your patty. When your taste buds meet real wholesome meat, that's when you know you're in a point of no return. You realize you're lost in the pleasures only a true meal can offer. You're lost, but you sure as hell don't want to be found. Hugo's Burger Bar. Let's burger like never before.
Life's about looking for little moments of happiness.
Moments when we come out of the cold and into the welcoming warmth. Delicious leisurely mornings or long lazy afternoons where we dream sweet dreams and take the time to finally be ourselves.
When you find these little moments of happiness, life becomes irresistible, a journey to be enjoyed. And Costa is there with you, every sip of the way.
Alright guys, welcome back into the GO&FUN esports tournament as we load up onto the Rift for game number 1 of this exciting best of 3 between the Raving Raptors and Divinity.
It's gonna be a good one, guys. I hope you're buckling on in here because I am definitely excited. We've got some really exciting, lanes to be watching here. Again, I already mentioned both these comps feel pretty similar to one another overall, so really, I think, every stage of the game we got to be watching very, very closely, but it all really does start with this early portion. How can, Raving Raptors try to contain this Kog'Maw, and will it just be allowed to, scale on up, reach that level 6 point? Transparent gets his ultimate, all of a sudden it becomes a lot more difficult to actually take him down.
We're going to need to see Vortex really try to put a lot of pressure onto Ventus, or onto Transparent. Try to help out Gruntless Gary in that top lane. Try to stop the sourcing of a lot of the shields that will come in for that Kog'Maw if you feel comfortable enough with mechanics and Dexalute able to win that lane against the Kog'Maw and the Karma.
And it's an interesting one right here for sure. I think we have to watch. And I really am also going to have my eyes pinned on this Vladimir too, because we know Vladimir hits level 6, all of a sudden he can really try to force those all-ins, in the mid lane. And, both these junglers do have fairly good ganks early on, whether it's the Gragas, the Body Slam Flash, whether it's Vortex sliding on in there with the Elastic Slingshot. So it's not going to be one of these matchups where the junglers just hard farm, waited on out. I think both these guys are going to be a little bit more proactive and try to make some plays early on.
We definitely need to keep an eye on them because they are gonna look for that. You're completely right. They're gonna try to see what lane they get ahead of. The question really is, which lane do they want to get ahead first? So now we get to pretty much just see how everything's going on the Rift. It's actually Jonah Dominator getting taken down. Wow, first blood for Starforger. The minions were wailing away on him as the Ignite was taking with Jonah Dominator trying to return that. But Starforger coming out really strong already into the game.
Yeah, it wasn't the level 6 all-in. It was the level 2 all-in right there, but still made it work. And yeah, level 2 power spike. But, Donut Dominator, I feel like this guy, in the Malta Cyber series, he was popping off. He was an absolute god on picks like the Jace, like the Ziggs. And in the last couple of times we've actually seen him in this tournament, it hasn't been sort of the same story. Even when Raving Raptors are crushing, he sometimes has bad experiences in the lane matchups. And, with him getting his Ziggs banned away, not really feeling at home here on the Orianna, and not expecting all of that damage, all that burst to fly out of Vladimir early on.
Yeah. Starforger, he realized he had the level 2 advantage. He got it that a little bit over Donut Dominator, and the all-in potential that apparently he had, that even you and I were surprised. I was about to just talk about how he's pushing up the wave, not expecting to have to talk about first blood going over to the Vladimir so quickly. But that's, I think, the story of Jonah Dominator. If he's not comfortable on a champion, we do see him struggling. We don't see him on the Ziggs or the Jace. He tends to fall behind and not really feel as at home on the Rift.
Which is funny, too, because we have seen him play this Orianna before. We've even seen him do well on the champion, but not really expecting all that coming out of Starforger, even though a heavy emphasis was put on that mid laner in the pick ban. They banned out things like the Aurelion Soul, like the Talia, all these roaming mid laners that we know Starforger absolutely loves. And Starforger sort of took that, said, you know what? I don't need to go across the map to actually get kills and make plays happen because I can just beat you in that laning phase.
Exactly. So gonna allow for the like of TMS to not even have to worry about that mid lane for quite some time. Gonna make it so that he's really open to go on into that top lane or to that bot lane and try to impact the map a lot easier.
Yeah, we got Vortex down here in the bottom lane, though. He went for a very early recall, and he's flying on in.
Yeah, and he does hit the Elastic Slingshot onto Ventus, get a lot of damage from the health picks as well as those Glitter Lances. They got the heal out of Ventus. He will survive. But one summoner down on the Kog'Maw is definitely a win.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big one right there, too, just to make sure that this Caitlyn Lulu dominate down here in the bottom lane. Now the Kog'Maw doesn't have any potion, doesn't have any way to sustain on through this laning phase, and Vortex is still down here in the bottom lane. The only thing I probably would have liked to see out of him was to get a good ward deep inside that jungle to potentially spot out KMS, who hasn't actually recalled just yet. He's farming up a storm there in the jungle, trying to get a really solid recall, because Vortex can't really say the same. He got a Chilling Smite, which, maybe helps him lock down some members in an actual gank, but as far as actual stats, he's not going to have many of those.
Exactly, and I don't know if I agree with the Chilling Smite coming onto a sack. I would have probably liked to see the Tracker Scythe a little bit more of the warding potential to really try to help out the team, like you had mentioned, get some deep vision so that they can keep an eye on exactly where KMS is pathing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that point. If you get the Tracker's Knife, you can also go for a very early sweeping lens, try and just clear away some vision, especially because Zac sort of sits in one place for a long time. If he's standing on top of a ward, it can be very easy for the other team, or whoever he's playing against, just to simply back on away, play it on safe. But the level 6 did just come through from Transparent. That was sort of the point we were talking about, and now all of a sudden it's going to be virtually impossible to actually kill this Kog'Maw. Whether or not he has the heal is irrelevant.
Exactly. Poor Vortex not really able to find a good way onto the map, because if we actually look at most of the lanes, they are pushing up pretty consistently. Gruntless Gary has really been able to kind of showed that he's the stronger matchup in the top lane, since we haven't yet seen Transparent back to try to get something like a Tiamat to really be able to help counter the push coming in from Gruntless Gary. And then the bot lane, Ventus and Raz have been forced to the tower almost consistently from the powerful lane that a Caitlyn and a Lulu bring to the table.
Well, that's just another one of the reasons why a Tracker's Knife would have been fantastic, because if you have those shoving lanes, if your laners have priority and are easily able to rotate on and help you, all of a sudden Vortex can go into the enemy jungle, put down good quality vision for his lanes, not only to keep them safe, but also they'll keep him safe. They will be able to back him up and just make everyone's lives a whole lot easier. But because he went for the more gank-oriented setup here with the Chilling Smite, not gonna be able to quite match up there.
Not at all. Though, we do see KMS not going for the Tracker's Knife instantly either. He actually went for that Bomby Cinder, trying to get a little bit more of the clearing on his jungle, continuing to just try to power farm his way to victory.
That's the right call, right there. It's not going to be the early game focus like we saw the Runic Echoes earlier in the day, but still going to make him that big old beefy frontliner. He knows he doesn't need damage.
Yeah, Shockwave going to connect onto 2 with the teleport coming in from Gruntless Gary. They're going to try to go onto Starforger, but that is going to be the Stand United onto that Vladimir. Flash away coming in from Oriana. KMS taking really low as he flashes himself to safety. Gruntless Gary wants to continue the pursuit onto these low health bars. He flashes in. Keeper's Verdict hitting up too, but Donut Dominator has no mana. Has to be careful, as we do see Vortex and Gruntless Gary looking to get that kill onto KMS. They will pick it up, but Transparent gets the kill onto Donut Dominator in return.
Yeah, both of those teams knew who their targets were going to be right there, but definitely going to be favoring Divinity. They did get another kill onto Donut Dominator right there. He'll be denied some minions in the mid lane, and he'd actually still been winning out in CS in that matchup. Him losing the minions right there, especially if Vortex were to decide to push out another wave, would have been very large for Starforger, but still, he's got Lucidity Boots, he's got an easily large rod, so he is going to be feeling just fine in this mid lane matchup.
Though, one important thing to note about Oriana is that she can fall behind and be relegated to more of that support kind of role for the mid lane, which is generally why we tend to see a lot of people favor that pick.
Not in a game like this, though, because, oh boy, Roz, that is a lot of damage!
Didn't even think that he had to flash away, but that tilt over Peacemaker was enough to get the kill.
I mean, Ventus had the heal too, right? It just wasn't the respect given because the 90 cal net didn't land. There wasn't a headshot coming through, and they figured they were going to be okay. But going back to that point about the Oriana, is that you only have 2 damage dealers on this Raving Raptors lineup, which is something you hardly ever say in the current metagame, because you always have, either a carry support or a carry top lane or even a carry jungler. Those are so incredibly relevant right now, but You know, if he does fall behind, all of a sudden it's all up to Mechanics, and it sounds like being a dead horse, but he is weak in the mid game.
Though we do have Mechanics doing a fairly good job in this bot lane. The heal did come in from Ventus, but wasn't enough. Trying to see if he can get it with that Ecathian surprise, but barely surviving is that Caitlyn.
So incredibly close right there, and that is, I guess, how you have to dismantle the pick. You kill the support first, and then all of a sudden Kog'Maw's not too hard to actually take on down, and Roz wasn't even, you know, entering back into that lane. He was going to that standard support warding route, so he wasn't even going to be able to help out right there. And I'd actually say that, you know, this Ginsu's Rage Blade as a first item for the Kog'Maw is even a surprise to me. I think against a heavy poke lane when you're being shoved in, and, you know, just with how good and how popular Blade of the Ruined King is right now, I'd have definitely expected him to opt into that route instead, rather than this more scaling Rage Blade option.
Yeah, that is... Well, usually you see people go for that, like you said, the scaling Rage Blade option when they're ahead, when they have the lead already, and when they're kind of even or behind, that's when they go for that Blade of the Ruined King. So definitely a interesting pick coming in from Ventus. Maybe feeling that he just wants to try to scale up and not even worry about lane, kind of forfeiting that and trying to see if Starforger can go for that hard carry.
Definitely not what they want to necessarily have, though, because they are down 30 CS. Still, what they're doing right now is actually rotating him towards this mid, which I understand in the sense that they actually just lost their bot lane tower, so he's all of a sudden incredibly vulnerable. But the same thing that, you know, the same concern I had for Raving Raptors, them only having 2 DPS sources, is relevant for Divinity as well. It's a Vladimir Kog'Maw, and if all of a sudden we're just A-ramming it down mid lane, no one is feeling good about themselves because they're just stealing golden experience from each other.
So one thing that I would say Divinity has over the side of the Raving Raptors is the Shen in the top lane. We see that now that he has that Tiamat, now that he has that ability to push in this Poppy, he's doing a fairly great job in making sure to keep up with CS and keeping up pressure in the top lane where Gruntless Gary had to back. So now he's going to have that ability to use that Stand United to really impact any team fight coming up.
Yeah, Gruntless Gary will have the teleport available as well, but it's not going to have that same impact as, you know, this giant shield on something like the Kog'Maw compared to a 4.5 second channel time. But still, I do like how KMS is playing completely around the bot side of the map right now. He's got camps top side. That's, you just ignore him because you need to get the vision down, make sure that Ventus can stay safe down here in the bottom lane, and because they don't actually want to sacrifice control of this dragon, they don't rotate Ventus top. That's another one of the options they could go for if they wanted to, but the dragon is too vital, I think, or they believe in this game, and as such, they keep him down here with the safety of KMS being nearby.
Yeah, but then we flip the script. We look at the side of the Raving Raptors. They have that first tower gold for themselves. They have a lot of pressure, but what do they need to do to truly be able to secure this dragon and secure possibly the momentum going in their favor?
Well, Vortex and Dexloot need to just join at the hip, go get deep vision, instead of just starting this dragon off, because now you're in a position where mid lane is being shoved in. It's very easy for Starforger to rotate collapse. Transparent could join the fight too. This could be bad.
Yeah, Dexloot getting engaged on. Here comes the Stand United. He has to use the Wild Growth on himself. They do secure themselves that in Mountain Drake, but Dexloot will fall. The kill going over to Ventus. Vortex having to flash out after using the last bounce, so they do trade a kill on the support for that Mountain Drake.
Yeah, but it's still a kill to Ventus, and that's not something you want to have happen. It could have easily been avoided with the advantage that they had, but they started that one off with Donut Dominator walking back into the lane. I mean, Mechanics just jumped over the wall. He wasn't even going to try to teamfight because they had no chance whatsoever, and that gives a lot more free time down here in this bottom lane for Ventus to try and catch up, and potentially for Starforger and the rest of the guys to, you know, bully Donut Dominator back in the mid lane.
But Mechanics taking a lot of damage. Here comes Vortex landing a good elastic slingshot onto Ventus. They get the heal out of Kog'Maw. They are on the chase, but behind them coming KMS as we had Gruntless Gary going for that teleport. Teleport going to be matched by Transparent, getting a lot of damage onto the Kog'Maw, but Mechanics having to be careful of KMS. Not landing that body slam. Gonna mean that they're pretty safe. The headshot gonna go on to Roz. Here goes the taunt, getting the bloblets popped from the Zac. as we have Gruntless Gary trying to get the buckler damage. They do get the kill. Killing spree for Mechanics. Ventus will be the next one for the double kill for the Caitlyn. The Caffeine Surprise will find nobody. Starforger's got to be careful, though, because Donut Dominator will get the kill.
That was absolutely massive for the Raving Raptors. It looked like their lead was slowly unwinding, but right there, they punish Divinity for sticking around a little bit too long. Not only do they get 2 kills onto the Caitlyn, but also putting some gold into the pocket of Donut Dominator is going to be absolutely massive, and I think they're going to be able to pick up 2 turrets off of that play.
Yeah, that's incredible. The fact that they're able to turn such a small advantage into something so massive, getting the tier 1 in the bot lane already well before, but now pressuring the tier 2 and getting that really low. Though they have to be careful because KMS has shown back up. They do get Dexalute hit out, has to flash away. They have the chase coming in from Ventus, who's just trying to put the poke. They're going to root down Mechanics. He's going to fall. The shield is not going to be enough. Shutdown, unfortunately, going to Roz.
Yeah, Dexalute's the worst support ever. He just let his guy take the fall for him. Now they're going on Ventus.
They had the shockwave only connected onto Roz, but they got the kill onto Ventus. Here comes Dexalute. You gotta be careful that Caffeine Surprise with Roz fighting KMS in the back line. They had that Morellonomicon just to stop the healing coming in from KMS. They get the kill onto him and then later onto Roz.
Yeah, it's huge. The shutdown onto Mechanics, but heck, they got 3 kills right immediately on after that, and they're just continuing to pressure down these turrets. The play around the Mountain Drake seems so perplexing, but it's allowing them to just get more and more objectives. The kills, the play from them all across the board has just catapulted themselves into a 6,000 gold lead that is just going to put them, items above their opponents.
So that's the question. Was it truly a great play coming in from Raving Raptors, or maybe just overcommitment coming in from the side of Divinity?
A little bit of both, I have to say. It takes a good team to identify those mistakes that your opponents do make, and it was definitely Raving Raptors who pulled the trigger, who teleported Gruntless Gary down into the bottom lane initially. And then, once again, with Mechanics getting caught out, Divinity overstayed their welcome once more and were caught out for that. Now we've got, just rotating up into the top lane. Now that you've got pretty much every objective off that bottom side of the map, KMS is lucky that he's actually able to get that red buff, but they're going to be losing that top turret very, very soon.
Yeah, so with all these structures being barreled away by the Raving Raptors, Divinity, they need to find a way to stop the bleeding. They have to find a way to really be able to come back into this game, but truly, how are they going to do that when they're losing everything?
Well, we said these compositions were fairly similar, and Divinity do have the late game scaling. Both these teams really do, but you can never underestimate that Kog'Maw. At the moment, though, feels like they just need to sort of stop the bleeding. Make sure that they don't lose, the next dragon, depending on what that is. Make sure they don't give up a Baron buff, because it will be fairly difficult for Raving Raptors to siege into Divinity unless they do have that Baron buff up and available to them.
And the next dragon is going to be that Infernal, so that is going to be something.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, both teams really want to play around, and you do not want to let that go into the Raving Raptors' hands if you are Divinity.
Again, I think that Infernal in this game is going to have slightly lower impact overall because you only do have the 2 DPS sources, so it really is only going to be increasing the stats of Mechanics and Donut Dominator, but you are right. Any of those slight advantages are going to be massive, and it really will come down to Divinity asking themselves the question, are we strong enough to actually pull off a team fight? And I think the answer is absolutely no.
Yeah, we see KMS, he wanted to go in to stop some recalls. He's even building the tanky route, having the Cinder Hulk and the Ninja Tabbies, and he gets absolutely chunked.
Yeah, no Omar just yet. So Donut Dominator, even though he started off the game fairly slowly, has caught up to Starforger. Is actually ahead in gold over Starforger by 1,000 after getting solo killed at level 2 in that matchup. That's absolutely ridiculous, and especially walking into these choke points around the Drake, I don't know if Divinity are going to be able to do it, because there's Mechanics is going to be dropping down the traps. Donut Dominator can zone with the threat of a shockwave just by putting a ball in one of those entrances, and with just 10 seconds on that objective, unless they can supplement some vision right now off of the recalls of RVR, Divinity aren't going to have the same chance to get on in there once Raving Raptors get that perfect setup they want.
Yeah, but talk about perfect setup. Look at the vision that we see in the northern quadrant of the Rift being brought in by the Raving Raptors. They have so much control just on the top side that they know exactly where the side of Divinity are, because they're like, oh, they're not on by any of these wards. They're clearly in the bot side. They're most likely near this dragon, so we can actually fight them because we know that we have the advantage.
Yeah, it's probably the wrong side of the map for the vision, but here we go. Divinity won it.
Yeah, they did put that Stand United down, but it wasn't enough. They have a Starforger in the middle with the Wild Growth being used on to Donut Dominator to keep him alive. Mechanic's able to get the kill, but now we see in the backline that Vortex taken very low. He does have the Bloblets available, but Redemption going to come in to try to keep him alive. He's going to land that Elastic Slingshot on Ventus. Double kill going over to Mechanics. Catherine's surprise, not going to be able to pick anyone as Mechanics still on the chase. He wants to get more with the wraparound coming in from Vortex. They're going to try to see if they can clean up a few more kills. Getting the kill, the Rampage for Vortex. KMS going to be the next one to fall. One more auto is going to do it.
Just not a winnable team fight for Divinity right there. Transparent, his Stand United got canceled almost immediately by Gruntless Gary, and he's in threat of being dove now.
Yeah, Gruntless Gary going very aggressive.
Oh,
Gotta be careful.
that's awkward.
Flashing, but it doesn't matter if the auto was still there. But in the end, we actually see Mechanics able to start pressuring on to the inhibitor tower because of that massive win by the Raving Raptors.
I mean, mid lane turret going down, bot lane inhib in trouble at the same exact time. I gotta wonder if Raving Raptors just grouped up in one lane, they probably would have been able to get that bottom lane inhibitor, giving them even more control over the potential Baron play coming on through. But Mechanics is a god, 7-1 at the moment, and he's still got 2k in his pocket, so when he does go back, he is going to become even more of a threat here for Divinity. And we're about to be in the same exact situation that we were around that dragon, because Baron is live. Raving Raptors have a mountain, and Divinity, if they lose this, I don't know if they have the wave clear necessary to actually hold on to their base.
Yeah, most likely not, but how do they even win the fight around the Baron? How do they really even get into there to stop it? They already have a level discrepancy between Vortex and KMS, as well as not even having any of the vision that they truly need to be able to spot out the Raving Raptors and stop any Baron play.
Well, I don't think they can actually win a team fight, but they can't give up the Baron. That means that KMS is going to have to pull out something ridiculous. That means they need to get good vision down. And, you know, the one thing that has been staying true during this entire game is the Raving Raptors haven't set up perfectly for these objective plays. Around that dragon, they didn't really have the deep vision they would have necessarily liked. They had all their vision, you know, put up here in the top side of the map. Now that they made the play down bottom, though, all these wards up here have gone ahead and died out, and they are starting it up, but no one's around here for Divinity.
Yeah, the moment that Ventus and Raz showed themselves in the bot lane, we see the trigger pulled by the side of Raving Raptors. That's why you even heard me exclaim, oh no, because I saw Ventus bot lane. I'm like, well, that's a free Baron. There's no way they can even try to contest.
Not what you want to have happen, and you know, there's already the exposed inhibitor down in the bottom lane. Orianna, Caitlyn, Lulu even so ridiculous at sieging because, first of all, you've got two ginormous tanks. They're going to walk up and try to soak up any damage that Divinity is actually going to try to put down. And it's not even like they need to block any skill shots. Then you got Mechanics to hit the chart from long range. You got the zoning ball, and you got 5 members down in the bottom lane here for Divinity, but you can't make this sort of a play because you're not going to kill Gruntless Gary fast enough, and you will lose your entire base if you invest that amount of time.
They're going to lose the tier 2 in the top lane regardless. They showed too many people in the bot lane. Gruntless Gary's just like, alright, I'm cool with people trying to focus me. My team's going to be able to take objective out after objective if you go for that.
And he's winning the 1v1 against Transparent now. Doesn't have a turret to dive, but there you
But
go.
he's gonna use everything. Get the 1v1. There's not much you can say about that when you're watching the slow bleeding coming out. And
yeah, Mechanics is just taking mid lane casually. It's all good. Now they're gonna dive. Who cares? Because Raving Raptors absolutely have troll.
The Shockwave. They're gonna try to see if they can get the Wombo combo coming in from him and Vortex. But they're in the backline, Donut Dominator taking a lot of damage. Got to be careful. The redemption was not in time, so Starforger was able to get that kill on to the likes of Donut Dominator, but he trades his life for that, as well as the entirety of his own base.
I mean, the game's just over. Dexloop probably could have saved Donut Dominator with the Wild Growth, or even using the exhaust on a Starforger, but Mechanics is 1v9.
Yeah, Mechanics truly is a godsend in this game. Just gonna be able to take the base, take everyone that comes near him. We saw the damage he was able to output onto that poor Kog'Maw. as now the Nexus towers are falling. It's going to be the last fight coming in from the side of Divinity. They went onto Mechanics, but it's not enough. The Wild Growth was going to be able to save him. KMS having to get the shields from the Stand United. Mechanics flashing in, using the heal. They get the kill on the KMS, but he gets taunted. The shutdown for Ventus. The Nexus tower is going to fall here in just a moment from the Winions. But still, losing Mechanics means the game's going to be dragged out just a little bit longer. Dexalute having to shield himself, trying to see if they can turn it onto Ventus, but he does fall.
Yeah, the game's going to be extended, but I think the ending is pretty much inevitable. Right now, there's, just barely a tick of HP left on that Nexus tower, and Mechanics, he's going to come back even stronger. Just look at the item disparity between him and Ventus. It's almost 2 fully completed items right there, and I'm beginning to think that Mechanics is just a late game Kog'Maw right now with how he is playing, just absolutely frontlining, mowing over the members of Divinity. It is gross.
Or is he more like Obi-Wan Kenobi? He might strike me down, but I'll come back stronger than before. That's what we're seeing here, because he is an absolute beast in this game.
I mean, I think he was already pretty damn strong to begin with, Magic.
Hey, so was Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars.
Yeah.
So,
but he was just a ghost at the end. Like, that's kind of lame. Like, what does he actually do? He just talks to Luke.
Yeah, but that technically means he's immortal. He can't die.
Yeah, but he can't even kill anything. Like, that's... I'd rather be alive with the potential to kill a lot of things. Because, like, think about a Jedi's KDA. Like, that is just massive over the course of a lifespan right there. Imagine all the droids he actually took out. Like, he can't do that. The droidicas?
There's probably stormtroopers, too, that he took out over...
Yeah. Dude, you know he wrecked Cody.
Oh, yeah. So, he beat Anakin, so he's got a lot going for him.
No, I can't give him the W over Anakin, because, he didn't finish him off, and that's kind of lame.
I could give him the W over that. Technically, Anakin Skywalker's no more, and it's Darth Vader, But now we're getting into the...
He was already Darth Vader, though. You're wrong!
Anyways, let's get into the team fight as we have Transparent going into the backline, but he's just getting completely zoned away. They get the kill onto him. Next one gonna fall is gonna be that poor Kog'Maw. Raj having to flash back to his tower. Storeforger underneath the fountain, doesn't matter, because him and KMS will get the triple kill over to Mechanics, with Raj being the last one. The ace gonna be picked up by Dexalute. The game gonna be going over to Raving Raptors. That will be as well Mechanics just walking under the fountain, seeing if he
that was literally just Obi-Wan Kenobi right there, straight up inting to Darth Vader underneath the laser beam. Oh boy, we're the Star Wars memes in full force today, guys. But hey, we got Game 2 coming up between these two teams right after the break. Will we see a Game 3 or a Raving Raptors going straight to the semifinals? Let's find out just after this.
Officers, what's going on?
We're in the middle of an epic car chase.
Is that why you're moving in slow motion?
Epic car chases are always done in slow motion.
That's a bit cliche. Going for a donut.
Donut.
Smart.
The moment the juice gently drips down your patty. When your taste buds meet real wholesome meat, that's when you know you're in a point of no return. You realize you're lost in the pleasures only a true meal can offer. You're lost, but you sure as hell don't want to be found. Hugo's Burger Bar. Let's burger like never before.
Life's about looking for little moments of happiness.
Moments when we come out of the cold and into the welcoming warmth. Delicious leisurely mornings or long lazy afternoons where we dream sweet dreams and take the time to finally be ourselves.
When you find these little moments of happiness, life becomes irresistible, a journey to be enjoyed. And Costa is there with you, every sip of the way.
I can't each beat that the music is bringing. We're all flames in the fire that keeps burning. We're inviting the night in. Welcome, my heart so full. I'm devoting myself to the night. There's no motive. We're just listening. We're existing. Hearts of fire, we will
All right, guys, welcome back into the Go&FUN esports tournament here at gamers.com.mt. We are about to get into game number 2 and potentially the final game for the day if Raving Raptors are able to take a win here over Divinity. But right now, we are getting into the pick and bans with the Ziggs and Ivern taken away by Divinity, then Aurelion Sol and Talia countered by the side of Raving Raptors.
Yeah, and absolutely nothing getting changed up. The only difference is going to be the Lulu that RVR really did want to first pick last time around. They were able to get themselves that and had a pretty high impact in the game. But now I wonder whether or not Divinity is actually going to try changing some things up. Because, again, I don't feel like their composition was necessarily all that bad. It was just a lot of, poor decision-making early on in that game that sort of led to this snowball that got out of control. And Mechanics, we know what that guy did. It was something that I don't think it was actually legal for us to stream.
No, that is something that would be reserved for certain other parts of the internet, but we are getting some more picks coming into the table as the Lee Sin is going to change it up for Divinity. They're going to go for a little bit more of that early game, but the other side, Raving Raptors, they're going to go for the exact same with the Zac and with the Poppy.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But the Lee Sin I absolutely do like. If Raving Raptors do sort of the same idea where they pick very scaling carries, then Lee Sin can absolutely try to punish that. You pair that up, even though I don't think we're going to see the Katarina locked in, at least not just yet. You get something aggressive, you try and win out in this early game, and beat Raving Raptors before they can sort of scale up to the later stages of the game. Because we know that that's a team that has been together for a long, long time, so they know how to play as a unit. They know how to coordinate within these team fights, and I'd love to see Divinity try and edge out an early game advantage, try and knock them down a peg before they reach that stage.
Yeah, that would be very nice to see, especially if KMS is able to make some really nice ganks happen with that Lee Sin. Gonna try to go for a little bit not over aggressive, but more overtly aggressive compared to that of the Zac, who does want to go for a little bit more of the early ganks, but is gonna have a little bit harder time, at least without having backed first.
Yeah, and I wonder. I think I'm getting trolled here by Mechanics, but hey, if you pop off that hard in game number 1, why not do something crazy? But
No.
It will just go ahead and be the Ashe right here.
Yeah.
And this is really interesting because, once again, high CC lineup, a lot of engaged potential from long range this time around, actually, from Raving Raptors. But they're going to have to get something with really high DPS out of mid lane. Maybe something like a Cassiopeia to try and, beat down some of the people that are going to be running towards their faces, because Raving Raptors, they don't have a whole lot of DPS.
No. I mean, Morgana is, like you said, much more about the... I'd say much more about the engage, but about the long range engage, not about the damage. If it was mid lane Morgana, even then it's still not even about that. It's about the engage potential that she brings to the table, especially with the lower range things like the Lucian being locked in for the side of Divinity, or even with the Lee Sin, who's going to have a little bit harder time. But it allows them to kind of hold off for Donut Dominator, try to get him onto something that's going to be a little bit more advantageous in that mid lane, possibly even the Jace, which he does like to go for, as we do see Orianna being locked in for Starforger.
I do like the Orianna specifically against something immobile like the Ashe. Not only that, but it's very safe in that mid lane. You can pick it into relatively any matchup, and Donut Dominator did look relatively good on that one once we got into the stage of the game where teams were actually grouping up, because of course he did get killed quite early on into that lane. And this is one of those situations, especially with the bottom lane, where I'm almost a little bit worried here for Ventus and Roz, because we said they wanted to go something early game. Great, you picked the Lucian, but you are low range. You mentioned up against the Morgana, post level 6, you're going to get ulted, you're going to get bound, and you're going to get arrowed. And that is something that Ventus is really going to have to figure out a way to play around when he's up against all these tanks that are going to be diving at him.
Yeah, but thankfully for him, he does have a good way of engaging with his team. The Nautilus and the Lee Sin going to be right there alongside him, as we see a huge amount of long-range potential coming in from the side of the Raving Raptors, locking in that Xerath for Donut Dominator. That means Mechanics, and Dexalute, Donut Dominator are going to be well behind the likes of Vortex and Gruntless Gary, who are going to have to go really far in or have to just play the peel game for those carries.
Well, KMS is loving this draft right now because he can look for those crazy flash kick plays once we start grouping up. I mean, as long as he sees the Black Shield get burnt, both Mechanics and Donut Dominator are going to be incredibly vulnerable. The game plan for Divinity, get a kill onto one of those guys at the start of the fight, and all of a sudden there's no damage. Better yet, get the kill onto Mechanics, and then all of a sudden it is a Xerath just trying to poke out with his Qs, and, you know, once you lose a lot of that DPS, Ventus can try to run around and get really aggressive in these fights.
Yeah, but with that, we're going to take a short little break as we throw it over to our sponsors. So, guys, go watch them, give them some support, and also give some thanks to the admins behind the scenes that are helping us out. Ishmael, Kirsten, Prime, you guys are helping us out amazingly with being able to bring this tournament. But for now, we're going to take a short little break.
Hey, officers, what's going on?
We're in the middle of an epic car chase.
Is that why you're moving in slow motion?
Epic car chases are always done in slow motion.
That's a bit cliche. Going for a donut.
Donuts.
Smart.
The moment the juice gently drips down your patty. When your taste buds meet real wholesome meat, that's when you know you're in a point of no return. You realize you're lost in the pleasures only a true meal can offer. You're lost, but you sure as hell don't want to be found. Hugo's Burger Bar. Let's burger like never before.
Life's about looking for little moments of happiness.
Moments when we come out of the cold and into the welcoming warmth. Delicious leisurely mornings or long lazy afternoons where we dream sweet dreams and take the time to finally be ourselves.
When you find these little moments of happiness, life becomes irresistible, a journey to be enjoyed. And Costa is there with you, every sip of the way.
All right, guys, welcome back into the Go and Fun esports tournament here at gamers.com.mt. We're about to get into game number 2 for the best of 3 between the Raving Raptors and Divinity. Can Raving Raptors be able to get a nice 2-0, or will Divinity be able to fire right back and make this go to the final of game 3?
Well, this is about to be war here on the Rift. It's Raving Raptors grouping up as 5, but at the same time, Divinity. This is the good old-fashioned solo queue versus blitzcrank tactics, where you just camp in the bush and wait for your opponents to come on into you. And honestly, level 1, it is hard to call this fight either way, because you got Morgana on one side, you got Nautilus on the other.
The other way.
This is gonna be brutal.
It's going to be the fight coming in. Here it starts up onto Dexter, taking a lot of damage. He flashes away, but the almost drops in that one. We have the exhaust onto Mechanics. The flash coming in from Transparent. KMS having to flash himself out as well. Guartless Gary will fall for the first blood to Ventus. And now Ventus going to be turned around, having to pop the heal, but he goes down. Dota Dominator gets himself a kill. So trade of 1 for 1, but first blood to Ventus.
Yeah, there was almost some crazy blast cone mechanics right there with that one spawning at the tail end of the fight, but that was a lot less bloody than I actually thought it was going to be. Dexaluke got taken so low right off the bat, and I was honestly surprised not to see someone from Divinity try to flash forward and get themselves a kill. But hey, it is a definite gain here for Divinity, because it's Ventus walking into lane with double longswords and 4 potions, and all Donut Dominator got for his kills boots.
Yeah, that's definitely a worthwhile trade for that low-range 80 carry like the Lucian. We've talked about how he definitely struggles in the lane against people that can poke out like the Caitlyn, even like the Ashe, who will be able to throw out the volley. So having 4 pots as well as 2 longswords, he's definitely going to have the advantage going into that lane.
Absolutely, and Summoner check all across the board. I do believe that Divinity do come out a little bit worse for wear. They lost 3 of their flashes. In the bottom lane, the only Summoner still up would be Ventus's flash, whereas really the only spell blown by Raving Raptors would have been the flash via Dexalute. And it'll be interesting to see how these junglers try to exploit that, specifically Vortex, who basically has the pick of the litter when it comes to lanes he can potentially gank.
Yeah, gonna really make it a lot easier for them, Zach, as KMS did get a little bit behind, having to go back. He got taken so low that he was forced into a worse position. But all in all, I'd say it's an even trade regardless. I mean, sure, we do see Ventus coming out a little bit ahead in the matchup, but you didn't lose too much, like you had mentioned. Only 1 kill for each side picked up in the very end of that. Means that there's not too much pressure given up, since everyone literally had to back.
The deciding factor in who won that early game is actually going to come in these next 5 minutes of play, while there are still flashes down here. And that's all off the back, primarily out of these junglers, KMS and Vortex, if they are actually going to be able to get anything to happen, try to make any of these lanes go in their team's favor. And that will decide whether or not it was a good play for one team or another right here. But I don't know, Ventus just actually spotted out Vortex pathing down to the bot side, so a lot of these lanes are going to have the knowledge Transparent. Flashless, he can still shove up because he's Nautilus and knows Zac is pathing down bottom lane, whereas Ventus and Raz might have to be a little bit more careful knowing Vortex is pathing.
As we do get to see how the lanes are kind of shaping up, we see Vortex trying to go for a little bit of an aggression onto KMS, wants to steal away some of the buffs, especially because Starforger just back. It's going to allow Vortex as well as Donut Dominator to go in pretty hard onto KMS and get a good chip of damage right onto that Lee Sin.
Yeah, very nice right there, and that shows you sort of the synergy built up with Raving Raptors over some time here. Both jungle and mid know what's going on. They pair up, invade into the enemy jungle, and it's mistakes like that, or sort of slips like that, can lose you a lot of pressure over the map. Now, all of a sudden, Vortex showing down here in the bottom lane, or not necessarily showing, but for his allies, they can feel so comforted knowing that there's deep vision in the jungle down here, that Vortex will be close by if anything shady does wind up happening, and they can try to press their advantages with that.
Right. And I would actually like to see Vortex change up his build compared to last time. We saw him getting the Chilling Smite last game on the Zac, but both you and I agreed that we would have rather seen that Tracker's Knife. So when he does back off, finally gets his recall in, it will be interesting to see exactly how he does change up his build.
Yeah, I mean, he had a lot more gold in his pocket this game round. Last time he recalled very early on. You're thinking if you have 650, 700 gold in your pocket, what can you actually build as a Zac? It's not a whole lot of great options. That's one of the issues, I think, with Cinderhulk junglers right now, is that it's not gonna feel necessarily as good as just going double longswords like you might see out of someone like a Lee Sin, and that's why he's sticking around on the map a little bit longer, trying to maybe mimic what KMS did last time around on the Gragas and pick up an early Bomby Cinder just to help with the clear speed and overall tankiness.
So we do have both the junglers in the bot side of the map right now. I thought we were going to see a little bit of a meeting in the bot lane, maybe a counter gank for gank, with KMS sitting on a control ward and Vortex having snuck himself into the push, but he was spotted out, I think, at the very tail end, so they do know the Zac is there.
Donut Dominator still not level 6. Once he does reach that point, all of a sudden it becomes a lot more easy for him to maybe roam out of the mid lane, but at the same time, he is going to be very vulnerable. Now that Starforger has the Shockwave himself, KMS, we're just really waiting on him to make a play because he's actually falling far behind. He's only level 4 and still has yet to really do anything on this Lee Sin. Vortex just doing a really nice job of stealing away a couple of camps and keeping KMS pinned down here in this lane.
Yeah, and that could also be attributed to that wonky fight that happened in the jungle early on that forced KMS to have to back off, made it so that he couldn't really try to go for those cheesy early level 3 strats that you can sometimes do with Lee Sin, but right now we are getting into a pause, so it gives us a little bit more time to dissect the map.
Right, and what I want to jump right into is continuing here with the Zac, because I think he recognizes a stark difference between this game and the last game. All of a sudden, you're not snowballing quite so hard in the early stage, and he goes back, he finds himself 2 control wards. He knows that KMS wants to be active on the map. He continues to try to make plays, and it is putting him pretty far behind. So with these wards, I expect him to maybe even go into the Tracker's Knife, hopefully. We'll see that out of him just to keep the map lit up so they can spot out this Lee Sin wherever he is on the map, and even potential roams coming through from Starforger now that we've seen that his tendency is to try and make some of these plays with this last roam down into the bottom lane that ultimately didn't really end up going in anyone's favor. He just has to back away.
It's, I think, also good communication coming in from the side of Raving Raptors, where they're really able to talk about the stark differences of how they want things to change up in the map. They're like, okay, we realize that KMS hasn't been able to make it anywhere on the map, but we want to make sure that he continues on that path of not being useful on the Lee Sin. Keep getting the pressure on him. Hey, Vortex, can you get some wards down into that jungle? You tend to have that tankiness. You have that Bomby Cinder, so you aren't too afraid. And as long as they go in with Donut Dominator again into the jungle, should be able to consistently see that happen throughout the game.
And KMS, he is one of the biggest points here for Divinity, for them to win the game. People float around win condition a lot, and I think he is one of has one of the biggest roles in these team fights. He's gotta be able to, probably land a really nice kick onto Mechanics or Donut Dominator, and he'll rely more on the rest of his team to try and burn the Black Shield, because that's how those guys stay alive. Dexloot needs to be on point with that, but there's a lot of threats. You've got a Shockwave, you've got the ultimate coming out from Nautilus as well, so if just one of those players can burn the Black Shield, all of a sudden a flank from KMS can be very, very good, but if he's squishy, if he's down in levels, that becomes a lot more difficult a play for him to actually pull off.
Exactly. So now that we have the pause finished, we get to kind of see the lane's getting pushed up a little bit by the side of Divinity. They're going to have a little bit of that advantage now that we have actually seen the fact that they have the longsword. We talked about that before Ventus having 2 of them compared to the 1 for Mechanic. So he does have a little bit more damage.
Hello.
Flash coming out of Transparent, that's going to be really nice for them later on if they want to go for another gank onto that Nautilus.
To be fair, the Nautilus started out the game without a flash, and Vortex never actually made his way up into the top lane, even though Transparent has been consistently shoving, and I would love to see Vortex, maybe after he claims that red buff for himself, try to make some sort of a play.
We have the Black Shield popped onto Dexloot. He is popped. Ventus getting the kill. That was a good play coming in from KMS.
Yeah, that's sort of what we've been waiting to see come out here from KMS, and now it's up to Vortex. Recognize the fact that KMS doesn't have a blue on himself and try to get those camps, but Mechanics, he's sticking around way too long.
Yeah, way too long. Gets blown. KMS, though, getting the heal.
That's
one
a
more
kill.
tick. Yeah, that's unfortunate. He stuck around too long under that tower, tanking up for far too long. They didn't really juggle the aggro from that tower, so sadly,
I mean,
losing the...
you can't really juggle aggro when you get hit point blank by the Ash
Well,
Arrow.
they could have had Karma start off the engage and then have the Lee Sin jump in, and then once he jumps in, that's when the Karma gets rid of the aggro.
Yeah, definitely potentially an option for them, but still a little bit unfortunate. Ventus, he's got 3 kills to himself right now. That is fantastic here for Divinity. But at the same time, you know, again, Vortex not getting much done. We said that he had the opportunity. There were 3 camps up. He could have taken every single one of those with the play down in the bottom lane with the death timer onto KMS. And instead, he goes back to his own jungle. He doesn't try to exploit this Lee Sin that he could have actually just set pretty decently behind right there.
Right, that's questionable play coming in from Vortex. Should have gone for something, and especially taking away the blue buff, making it so that you can't give that over to Orianna and give more pressure for that Xerath in the mid lane is really going to help out for Donut Dominator, who does already have that kill over the likes of Starforger. So you want to have that mid laner be able to continue the pressure in every fathomable way. So now, just getting a little bit of skirmishing in the top lane, nothing too unheard of. Not going to have any true kill potential there. But then the bot lane, this is really where we'd have to keep our eye on. Ventus, we talked about being 3-1 already. Look at the damage he's able to bring, but he got hit up by that Dark Binding, so he loses his life. The Crystal Arrow then landing onto Ross. That was the kill potential we're talking about, but honestly, just way too greedy from the side of Divinity.
And now top lane, Gary in trouble.
Yeah, Gary's in a lot of trouble. It does have the steadfast presence, but they wait that out for that sonic wave. He will fall, but still an overall global pressure going over to the side of Raving Raptors, having gotten the 2 kills, especially that shutdown onto Ventus. Giving that over to Mechanics is going to be amazing for them.
The Raptors have to be so happy with that play right there. And Ventus had a massive advantage down here in the bottom lane. Those 3 kills, but all of a sudden, Vortex making things happen, sticking around in the bottom lane. And the second Lucian dashes forward, there's no way for him to get out of the fight. The arrow was back off of cooldown. Seems like it was way too short right there, but they used that just to punish Roz after they got the initial kill onto Ventus. And now they sort of have their pick of where they want to go on this map, because there's nothing pinning the duo down to the bottom half of the map. It's just a cloud. No one really cares about that Drake for better or for worse, so they can try to extend this gold advantage by going and aiming for the turret in the top lane.
And that is exactly what they're doing. They opened up that map with the first tower. So the side of Divinity put on the back burner for this game. They're not down too much gold, but they got to find a way to really help solidify their pressure on the map. And that's where we have to look at. How do Divinity make it so that they can swing some of that global pressure back into their favor?
Well, again, I think you want to start to focus down some of these immobile members. Stop ganking onto Gary. Split pushing is not going to be a relevant factor in this game. It all is going to come down to the 5 versus 5. So claiming this objective on the bottom side of the map, that's going to be all fine and dandy, but they need to make sure that they actually get the turret at the same time or manage to defend this one in the top lane, which Nautilus should be able to do a relatively good job of, but not if he gets poked down too low, because they can dive him.
Yeah, they can. They do have Vortex here. He's going really hard with the depth charge, but that was a black shield for the Morgana. Arrow gonna land on to Transparent. Just gonna get the little bit of poke, pop the bloblets coming out of that Zac. So all in all, no kills yet being traded for the side of Divinity. They wanted to get that back onto Vortex, but Transparent doesn't have that kill pressure, though.
Ooh, nice hook.
That was a really good depth charge with Roz and KMS finally showing up. They're gonna try to see if they can turn it right back around, but not gonna be able to find the kills.
Hey, who said Cloud Drake was useless? They used that to rotate up to the top half of the map and try to even turn around a potential dive right there. That was just sort of sloppy coming out from Raving Raptors. Vortex is sitting on 2,000 gold. He is squishy at the moment. He can definitely go back and pick up a Cinderhill plus boots too whenever he wants to at the moment. And that allowed Transparent to sort of hold on to things in the top side, allowed Ventus to return down into the bottom lane, continue to soak up some golden experience in a side lane, And while the game isn't, snowballing forward, Divinity are going to be very, very happy, and they can sort of count their lucky stars and plan out their next point that they can try to exploit from RVR, whether that's going to be Mechanics up in this top lane or Donut Dominator in the mid lane.
Right, as this game is a very stark different so far from the last one, where we saw just that one team fight that really just swung things out of control, especially around this time. It was right around the 14-15 minute mark that we saw a horrible fight just make it so Raving Raptors were able to just decimate the side of Divinity. But as long as we don't see that kind of play coming out of Divinity, we should be able to see them come into the team fights and actually have a lot better of a chance this time around, especially with someone like the Lucian, who tends to be known as this mid-game power spiking champion.
Yeah, and he's going to be going for, I believe, the Black Cleaver as a second item, which I definitely do agree with when you're up against so many tanks on the side of the Raving Raptors that you really do need to be able to cut through that armor. A lot of times we'll see it paired with a very aggressive jungler, maybe like a Graves or a carry-oriented top laner, so that the Black Cleaver has effectiveness for more than just yourself as that Lucian, but still more than likely going to be the correct decision for him, and with that maybe he can delay his Mortal Reminder a bit.
Oh, but the flash came in from Starforger a little too late. He got hit up. Even the Shockwave not going to be able to save him. Needed to flash a little bit more to the left or to the right, as it was a really good placement of that elastic slingshot coming in from Vortex.
Hey, I mean, that's the flip side of the mid lane. I said that Divinity can punish the immobile Xerath. Well, Raving Raptors, they can easily punish this Orianna, who, once she burns the flash, is going to be going absolutely nowhere. Now, maybe 2v2 top lane? I don't think so. I don't think you're going to win that, because you're going to take so much damage on the back end of those trades, man.
Exactly. They can get kited around for so long from someone like an Ashu, is able to just slow down anybody forever and more.
It's definitely not very fun. This is taking me back to the lane swap days of old, where it was like jungle or top support, and jeez, I don't know, man.
That's a lot being used by the side of Divinity. They wanted to go hard, but they're able to keep this tower alive, and look who's shown up to the fray. Gonna be KMS trying to see if he can get over where that Dragon's Range does kick back Mechanics, but they're not gonna be able to pick the kill. The heal gonna come in.
The damage!
So low. One more hit. They get it onto him. Transparent gonna be the next one to fall. Double kill going over to Mechanics. The damage was there. Gotta be careful. They went a little too greedy, not respecting the counter roam that can come out from the Raving Raptors.
It looked good at the start because KMS knew there wasn't a Black Shield, tried to set up that play, but they don't have the damage. That is the issue that has plagued them time and time again right here. And Mechanics, when he doesn't get killed, he can turn it around, dish back so much ridiculous amounts of DPS in those fights, and they're going to get another tower for their troubles.
They're going to keep the gold lead in their favor. Wait, they're not. Okay, they're just going to share the gold. I was like, they're not going to give it over to Mechanics. They're going to send him back. I questioned that for a second, but going back into everything, the gold just swinging massively over to the side of Raving Raptor. Sure, it seems like it's only 2,000, but we saw what happened last time with just the small lead that Raving Raptors were able to carve out for themselves in the early game. They were able to transition that amazingly into the team fighting and the more mid-game power spiking champions.
Well, this game gets a whole lot scarier for Divinity when turrets go down. When Raving Raptors decide to put some deep vision inside the Divinity jungle. And that's why we see so many of these control wards just guarding off the entrances. Because the Raptors have so much pick potential. It's the Zac, the Poppy, the Morgana. Literally every champion has some form of single target crowd control from these guys. So if they catch one person off, if they, have anyone from Divinity face checking into the fog of war, especially once we start centering our attention around these neutral objectives, it's going to be very easy for the Raptors to burst one target down and then pursue a team fight or a dragon or baron, anything they want after that.
Yeah, but they still need to knock down that mid lane tower. We did see Divinity able to get that, so they did open up a little bit of the possibility that they can get some nice deep vision on the Raving Raptors jungle. So, would like to see the Raving Raptors knock down that mid tower, get the tier 1 down, so that they could really open up that pressure around these upcoming objectives.
Yeah, the only real way to do that would be to, catch Starforger off in a side lane or even look for a potential dive onto him. But this is going to be Infernal Drake, and you can see a massive difference between how the Raptors handled this compared to the Cloud earlier on, where they just simply traded for a turret. This time around, they want to set up around this objective. And again, if Divinity do want to team fight them rather than just go for a smite steal, they're going to have to walk through one of these corridors, and that's where the Raptors can try and single focus them down.
Yeah, but here comes the teleport in from Transparent. They're looking for the fight on the side of Divinity. Transparent's trying to get in, but the let's bounce by Vortex.
Camus got it!
Yeah, they got the smite steal. They get the kill on to Mechanics as well. That's a huge DPS factor gone. Donut Dominator going to get engaged on as well. Double kill going over to KMS. Dexalute left out to dry. He's going to try to see if he can get himself to safety.
Oh.
And the disconnect, we'll probably see a pause in a moment as Dexalute did lose his life.
Couldn't have come at a worse time, too, for the Raptors right there, because Divinity, they move on in, they steal away the dragon, and even though, yeah, the Raptors, they can chalk this all up to we had a disconnect in the fight, Mechanics didn't disconnect. He got single targeted right off the bat, got absolutely taken out of the fight, and that was basically the win condition in a 5v5 for Divinity. Take out the DPS, and then search for the only damage source left. Get the Xerath, who coincidentally disconnected, but still after that, there was no way for the Raptors to fight back, and that brings us dead even in this game.
It does, and I think one of the important factors to look at in that team fight that really did help out was KMS honestly was on point with that Lee Sin, getting the Dragon's Rage kick right on to Vortex right as he needed to smite. So it led KMS to be able to go, haha, I can smite this down now. I can steal this right out from under your foot. And then the great engage going right onto Mechanics, like you had mentioned, just bursting him down, making sure that DPS factor is off the table.
Yeah, and it was sort of a chaotic team fight right there. It looked like it was going to be straight up front to back, but Mechanics, he got focused down, and now with all these turrets going down, the game is starting to look so much better here for Divinity. Now if they're the ones with the vision control, if they're not worried about the Raptors trying to pick them off, they're going to be feeling really comfortable scaling in towards these later points in the match.
Right, and we talked about how they do have a really good mid game. Lucian going to bring a lot to the table, especially Lee Sin as well. If he goes for that more attack damage early on in the game, he has that Warrior's Enchantment as well as the Ninja Tabby. So he has a little bit of damage, a little bit of tankiness that he brings to the table. So he's going to be able to burst people down like Mechanics or like Donut Dominator, at least at this mid stage in the game.
Yeah, I don't know if Ninja Tabbies are going to be the best item for him this time around, though. Yeah, everyone starts memeing about how fantastic those boots are. Yeah, they're pretty good, but you look at how much crowd control you're dealing with from the Raptors, and now all of a sudden it feels like he might even have to itemize into a Quicksilver Sash just so he doesn't get, locked down when he is attempting one of those flank plays.
Exactly. The only thing, and also to mention, the only thing that the Ninja Tabbies are really going to protect him from are Mechanics. It's not really going to protect him from Donut Dominator, Dexalute, Gruntless Gary, or Vortex. He's got to be really careful still. It helps him here in the mid game, but come later into the game, if we do see Raving Raptors able to draw this game out to the Baron fights, to the Baron dances, or even just to late game team fights, we should see a swing going right back into the Raving Raptors' hands.
Yeah, and it feels almost like the Raptors have to change their approach when it comes to the team fights, because straight off the bat, we notice, hey, they've got a lot of ways to start fights from way downtown. That's all good, but not necessarily in a game like this. If they can get a pick, sure, that's going to be fantastic for you, but in a front-to-back team fight, maybe you're going to need Vortex and Gary to stick around Mechanics, try and protect him from the potential dive of the Lee Sin Nautilus. Just to try and keep them alive in these team fights, because that is going to be a big, big issue for them. They have a Morgana. The Black Shield, that's good at stopping CC, but it's not going to be up to par with a Lulu like that last game.
Not at all. And another thing to note is how many of these mid towers have gone down. They only have the inhibitor tower left in the mid lane, so they don't really have that much room and flexibility to retreat either. The likes of Mechanics and Donut Dominator, they want to stay further back, but when you don't have that much area to run back to, when you have to play so far close to your base, it allows a lot of objective control.
Oh, no.
But KMS, why in the world are you face checking that push so early on?
there's just no reason to do so right there. Now, it's actually funny because he did the sort of fade away into the bush the first time to try and scout out if anyone was there. There wasn't. But then when he went around the second time, that was right when they put down the control ward, and he's gonna be regretting the decision not to actually go for Merc Treads. And the fact that he went for the Black Cleaver too, well, I don't necessarily disagree with it because he's having a relatively good game and he's just trying to burst down a target on the back line. That's gonna delay him from getting beefy, from getting a potential Quicksilver Sash, which could cost him here for the next 5 or so minutes.
Though I will argue that I don't think the Merc Treads would have saved him there.
No, not at all. Not at all.
The only thing that truly would have saved him is not going near that bush to begin with.
You're not wrong.
It was very questionable, but you're right for the most part. The Merc Treads are going to help him out. He needs to get that Mercurial Scimitar or get that Quicksilver Sash, whichever he'd like to path towards, if he even wants to path towards something a little bit more aggressive like that Mercurial Scimitar. But in this essence of what just transpired on the field, we do see that KMS has respawned back up. It's still early in the game, so even dying, unless there's a massive amount of Baron control already in the favor of Raving Raptors, it doesn't actually hurt them too much.
Yeah, I mean, the two members that the Raptors are actually looking for is A, KMS, if they want to try and make a play around the Baron. Still going to be risky going for the 5 versus 4 there, but at least there's no potential for a Smite Seal. Or B, if they can single out Starforger, take him down, all of a sudden the wave clear from Divinity is relatively minimal, and Ventus might have to resort into using the culling to clear away a wave to keep that mid-turret afloat, because, again, you take down this turret and all of a sudden it becomes much easier to go in to the Divinity jungle, to put down that vision, and from there you can try to make the pick. So you saw them get KMS. That's all great, but he's not going to make that same mistake again. He's never going to go that deep into Raving Raptor's jungle unless he is very, very confident with that. So by pushing the vision forward, by denying vision around that Baron area, they can allow this composition to really come into full form.
And that almost reminds me, like, why we haven't seen the blue trinket coming in from Starforger yet. Why he's still sitting on the yellow.
I mean, it's still 22 minutes into the game, so I don't fault him all too much, but I do think that the blue trinket would be better. If he was, going bottom lane a lot or going into a side lane and picking up minions quite frequently, then I'd say, yeah, you can stick on this yellow trinket just to keep your flank safe, make sure you're not getting collapsed upon by any of the Raptors member, but they're not the team with the Ashe, so if the vision is denied around the Baron area, they've only got the one blue trinket right now, and I do agree with you in the sense that could be a relatively large issue for them if the Raptors exploit it.
Yeah, but we will see exactly if the Raptors are able to exploit it. They are at a very massive disadvantage when it comes to control of the map. We look at the warding coming in from the side of Divinity, and look at that nice line, how far back that ward line is for the side of Divinity. They have so many opportune areas for Transparent to go for a TP flank if he needs to, or even just to notice where the side of Raving Raptors are, because how far they are up. We talked about how they lost their tier 2 in that mid lane. They're a little too far up and might be caught out here at any moment.
Well, not only does it give Divinity good knowledge, but it also opens up the possibility for Transparent to look for a flank teleport really anywhere he wants to. And Nautilus flank TP can be absolutely powerful once KMS does return here to this middle lane. And the flanks are where Divinity really do shine. When you've got KMS coming in from the side, even Transparent at the same time, just so that they can try and lock down either Mechanics or Donut Dominator. The only issue I would maybe point out with Transparent going for a play like that is that there's always room, because they wouldn't have any other really tank to sit with Starforger and Ventus, that the Raptors could simply drop down the Asher and turn things straight around onto Ventus or Starforger, who really do have to get a lot closer than a lot of other characters in their respective roles to deal the damage.
Very true. But if that arrow does miss, it's a huge missed opportunity for the side of Raving Raptors. They got to be very careful if they want to flip things around.
Yeah, and it looks like this pause might be a little bit longer than the ones we're used to, just around as the clock here is winding down to match the in-game timer. So we are going to throw it over to a quick little break right here. Donut Dominator, get your stuff together, man, because we want to see how this game ends up. We'll see you guys soon as we can.
jack it up.
Alright guys, it looks like the pause has ended. Donut dominated the hamster fed, and he's back up on the rift, so we will see exactly how all our theory crafting during that pause ends up coming into play.
Yeah, until those little legs stop working anymore, hamster gonna be going hard and strong. But, you know, just as we left it, still, it's the Raptors grouping up here in the mid lane. They really do want this turret, but it's almost impossible for them to siege on through the Orianna pick. Not only does she provide such great wave clear, but Mechanics, he can never walk up to the turret because a shockwave is imminent death for him.
Exactly. Don't want to lose the DPS of Mechanics. We saw how that ends up unfolding for the side of Raving Raptors when they lost during that dragon play that they had earlier. And somehow they got to figure out how they're going to get down Starforger. They have to get rid of that player, because if they're able to get him, that's a huge win for them. Vortex, he wanted to go in, not able to find that target.
Yeah, as soon as you see the Black Shield, though, you can go for plays.
Yeah, Shockwave hitting onto Donut Dominator. He will fall. Frontless Gear going to be the next target as Roz is able to pick up that kill with Let's Bounce. Trying to hit up onto KMS. The Crystal Arrow only hitting up to Transparent. Flashes coming in all across the board for the Raving Raptors. They are on the run. The retreat not going to happen, though, as double kills go over to Starforger. Only Vortex surviving.
Yeah, that was a massive mistake right there. Vortex dove in to try and zone away Divinity, to try and pick up the tower for themselves, but instead they end up blowing the Black Shield on the big tanky. Zac losing that, so Dominator went down almost immediately. It looks like he DC'd again, but they don't care. They're just going for this inhib.
Yeah, it looks like the side of Donut Dominator, even though he did DC again, they're just going to try to see if they can play things out. Go for everything that they can, because it doesn't really matter at this point. Donut Dominator died during that whole time. He has reconnected, thankfully, but it gives a huge amount of pressure back over to the side of Divinity, who were already starting to really take control of this map.
Yeah, now they can just go ahead and start playing around the Baron if they so desire. We've seen their team fight look so incredibly dominant over the Raptors, who had a very sizable early game advantage. They were the ones in control, but that has slowly died on out here, and with a lot of control wards in their inventory, I gotta believe that Divinity are looking to play around that objective.
Exactly. They did have a good line of these control wards right leading to the Baron for themselves, so they were able to spot out and know exactly how the side of Raving Raptors are going to play. But yeah, they got cleared out. It was a weird, wonky little line, but now with all the control wards in the inventory, hopefully they'll be able to try to gain control of that Baron and use the effectiveness of these supers in the mid lane.
I mean, really only one of those wards was actually effective. The other two were incredibly redundant, but it at least shows that these guys want to get down some vision control / denial for themselves. And yeah, this Baron is going to be a very, very big threat here. The Raptors are going to have to deal with. The benefit of the Ashe, though, is that you've always got the Hawk Shot up. You've got the double blue trinkets as well. So it's going to be very hard for Divinity to sneak this away. But if they get a pick, potentially, all of a sudden, the Baron becomes very, very easy.
Frontless Gear, you got to be careful, as he was sitting on a ward that was placed by KMS. And this tier 1 in the top lane never really taken, never really needed to be taken by the side of Divinity. So that's just free gold going into their pocket as they look to now try to pressure around the Baron.
Yeah, just literally the standing gold on the map, even though for a while in this game they're actually down in turrets. The fact that they were able to swing that on top of its head when the gold was already so close really helped them snowball out of control. We actually saw the arrow used to scout out that.
Yeah, so they do know that is also going to be the Scribe's Room. Here comes the TP.
Oh, that's
cancel.
big.
That is really big. Gruntless can teleport in here. We'll see if Vortex is trying to go for a steal as the rest of Divinity, they realize that they don't have their tank. They get out of there.
That's so sad, too, because Raptors, they had an opportunity to go for a 5v4 fight, but there's no wards for Gruntless Gary to actually teleport to get some sort of a flank maneuver off, because Divinity so carefully cleared away the deep vision of the Raving Raptors. Now they can sort of shrug that last play off. It didn't go as planned, but they didn't lose anything for it, minus the teleport. They've still got the Drake that they can look back towards, and instead of going for the Baron, now they have the opportunity to go in, steal away the blue buff, and potentially even siege up this bottom lane after they spot mechanics all the way up in the top lane.
Exactly. Plus, they have that great vision around the Baron where they don't have to feel threatened by the side of Raving Raptors going for something really cheeky there. And instead, the reactive play has to come out of the Raptors in order to stop some of this massive bleeding that they are having right now.
Exactly. And what this also does is it stretches the vision line thin from the Raptors, because if it's only transparent, just split pushing down here in the bottom lane, you don't need to invest any wards. But as it is, now the Raptors went down bottom lane, they brought everyone down, put down some vision, and that left a lot of time here around this Baron still. So they're not going to have quite as many charges in the sight stones, in the tracker's knives as they would have liked to, because again, this Baron rush threat is still very, very relevant, as it always is, really, when you get into this sort of meta game where Leandries is so core early on in a lot of these mid laners, where Blade of the Ruined King is so popular, and both of the carries for Divinity have that. So the Baron is absolute cheddar.
But we have to keep in mind that there is still no teleport for Transparent, who's in the bot lane looking to get a nice shove. Gruntless Gary has that opportunity, so if you're on the side of Divinity, you have to be extremely cautious if you're looking to make this Baron call.
Right, but still, no flank wards, and that was sort of the point I was trying to make, where a bunch of Raptors got dragged down into this bottom lane, is that they didn't take that time to put vision around that Baron, so that Gruntless Gary could try to make a play happen. And this is actually incredibly risky. The ward is being canceled out in the back of the pit, I believe, but still, 5 versus 4, definitely.
Yeah, the arrow's gonna hit onto KMS. Here comes Vortex. They're just trying to see if they can get the kill onto KMS. A lot of damage coming in, but he got killed getting into his bloblet, so he wasn't able to smite that away. The teleport gonna be used to keep him alive for now. The side of Divinity gonna be able to escape with their lives. Every member gonna have Baron.
Absolute train wreck for the Raving Raptors right there. Gruntless Gary so late on the teleport, and Divinity still come out with the Baron. That was an incredibly risky call from a very safe early game that these guys played. They didn't really want to make a lot of risks, but now they've got the Baron, so they can revisit that mid lane, drop that inhibitor once more, and then try to just take all of these turrets still standing on the map to just balloon this gold lead even wider, now that they know that Raving Raptors just gave it their best shot and couldn't come away with anything.
Though it does look like the side of Divinity are actually going to opt for the bot lane. They want to try to see if they can open up the map a little bit more through these towers, through this lead that they have carved up for themselves very nicely in this game too, firing back amazingly towards the Raving Raptors.
Yeah, and you just got Transparent over there in the mid lane. Again, teleports aren't going to play a crucial role in this next fight because it seems to just be grouping up as 5 for the majority right on here. And something I would like to see out of Divinity is using this ball to zone. Put it on one side of the inhibitor, have the rest of your team approach from the other angle, and that will allow for the short-range Lucian to really get things going, but their bodies are big enough that they can do it without that.
Exactly. You really have to ask yourself at the end of the day, was there even a way the Raving Raptors could effectively fight? We've kind of criticized their team comp throughout the game, where we talked about how they have this good long range initiate, but if they get initiated on, they really don't have any great way to peel. They have one black shield from Dexley two members to put it on, and if Mechanics or Donut Dominator drop in the fight, that's all their DPS just completely gone.
I guess they just have to take a page out of Divinity's playbook right there, where Divinity are trying to single out Mechanics or Donut Dominator, and maybe the Raptors can try to use all of this crowd control, all of this, single target pick potential to try and lock down Ventus, who's a short range AD carrier, try to lock down this Orianna who went for a ghost rather than something like the cleanse, and even that is going to be very, very hard because all these skill shots that would be required for a play like that are just going to get soaked up by this giant beefy Nautilus. And that's really where I think a lot of the issues are lying here for the Raptors, that they can't get that big initiation because Transparent soaks it up and he's got a GA, so even he's not going to drop.
Exactly. He's just going to be able to run right at them, not even caring anymore. Can probably 1v5 with taking very little damage at this point.
Yeah, Ventus has a QSS at this point as well. He's got a Last Whisper, so he's cutting through the armor that's being built up. So really the itemization is really coming through at the exact moment that Divinity would have liked to. And it's going to be very, very difficult for the Raptors to win a team fight, but the easiest time for them to do so is underneath an inhibitor tower, potentially, but they still have to worry about those super minions flooding their base.
Yeah, someone's got to go deal with them. That's going to mean that this inhibitor in the top lane should fall.
No, Vortex.
Yeah, Vortex is going really far in. They lose that inhibitor. It's already gone. Redemption's going to heal up many of the members on the side of Divinity. They get the kill onto Mechanics really easily. Gruntless Gary taking so low. Got to be careful as we see Vortex finally gonna just get back to his tower, double kill, given over to Starforger. Dexlu gonna be the next target with Ventus going really far in, but that should be the game. That is a great comeback coming in from the side of Divinity.
Yeah, and that's going to force a game 3 right here. The Raptors have to come back from this. They've been dealing with disconnection issues this entire game, and somehow they need to fix that, pull in a sub, or just play through the pain, which didn't look like it was a real possibility because, remember, this entire turn started with the dragon fight, with that Infernal that Donut Dominator disconnected during, and that just led to this cascading style of events that Divinity were able to walk all over Raving Raptors for the victory.
Exactly, and after a really commanding game 1, it's quite surprising to see Raving Raptors really fall apart in game 2, but really impressive to see Divinity come back in such a strong way and really be able to take advantages where they need to. But you're right, they have to figure out something with Donut Dominator, whether it is getting him a new computer or whether it is getting a sub. But that is definitely something that was on their mind completely throughout the entire game and could be a tilt factor that we have to keep in mind going into game 3 here. But with that, we're going to take a short little break as we get everything ready for you guys for game number 3 between the Raving Raptors and between Divinity to find out who's going to make it into the semifinals or who's going to have to go to the losers bracket. So guys, don't go anywhere.
Hey, officers, what's going on?
We're in the middle of an epic car chase.
Is that why you're moving in slow motion?
Epic car chases are always done in slow motion.
That's a bit cliche. Going for a donut.
Donut.
Smart.
The moment the juice gently drips down your patty. When your taste buds meet real wholesome meat, that's when you know you're in a point of no return. You realize you're lost in the pleasures only a true meal can offer. You're lost, but you sure as hell don't want to be found. Hugo's Burger Bar. Let's burger like never before.
Life's about looking for little moments of happiness.
Moments when we come out of the cold and into the welcoming warmth. Delicious leisurely mornings or long lazy afternoons where we dream sweet dreams and take the time to finally be ourselves.
When you find these little moments of happiness, life becomes irresistible, a journey to be enjoyed. And Costa is there with you, every sip of the way.
I give in to the lesser fight. My body aches to be satisfied. My weakness comes and goes. My weakness comes and goes. I'm reaching out for the easy high. Please fortify this strength of mine. My weakness comes and goes. My weakness comes and goes. weakness comes and goes, it goes, it goes. My weakness echoes in my soul. Oh, it echoes in my soul. My weakness comes and goes, it goes, it goes.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Go&FUN esports tournament for game number 3 between the Raving Raptors and between Divinity. As we are getting into the pick and bans, we already have Aurelian, Talia, and Lucian taken away by the Raving Raptors, with Ivern, Ziggs, and Lulu being taken off the table by Divinity.
Yeah, it's interesting that they think that Lucian is the issue right here. You know, they've been playing around with that third and final ban over the course of the entire series, but I don't really think that was really where they fell flat. It was much more compositionally based here from the Raving Raptors, and I wonder how this draft is going to shape up, because they did have the Karma last time round. It is probably the strongest support left once you do ban away the Lulu, if you want one of the more supportive supports, if that doesn't sound redundant enough. And that'll try to keep alive the double carry combo that they've been running with for the last couple games.
Yeah, but they don't have the Poppy or the Zac just yet in their combination, which has been something that they've literally gone to every single game. So we will see if they do opt to switch that up, because like you had mentioned, they have the double carry composition, but we saw how it can fall apart pretty heavily in game number 2.
Yeah, and a large part of that, in theory, would have been the Lee Sin and Nautilus too. And this is basically exactly the same idea that the Raptors had in game number 2, where they mimicked their draft from game 1, and now we have the jungle top, in theory here, loading in from Divinity. It worked for them last time around, so why change up anything? But that puts a lot of the onus now on the Raving Raptors. What is going to differ in their composition? I don't think we're going to see the Xerath. The Ashe did work, so maybe we do get a repeat out of that, but the Caitlyn looked even better from Mechanics.
Yeah, I would much prefer the Caitlyn. Brings a lot more to the table in terms of actual, like, range DPS that he's able to bring in, because we saw that he got caught out a little too much on that Ashe, as opposed to the Caitlyn, where he was able to keep himself a little bit safer with that longer range, as well as even just that 90 caliber net was able to help him out with avoiding a lot of the skill shots being thrown at him by the side of Divinity.
And I think I'm Gonna really like the Gragas more than the Zac pick, too. That does
Agreed.
get locked in right here. It's a lot more guaranteed CC. If you get the Flash Body Slam, that's so much easier than actually connecting with an Elastic Slingshot, because there's so much counterplay to that ability. The same cannot really be said for the Body Slam Flash. You basically have to flash preemptively if you do want to escape from that. Not to mention that, you know, no matter what Ventus grabs for his AD carry, if he gets caught out by that, he's going to be displaced straight on into the rest of the Raptors. And at the same time, the Raptors are guaranteed at least one counter pick for either their mid or ADC, which I really do like as well, because that's been where a lot of the emphasis has been in these games.
Exactly. Really making sure that Starforger has an easy time in that matchup in the mid lane is going to be really helpful for the side of Divinity. But the thing I think I like about the best about the Gragas is actually the fact that it has the flexibility. It can go for that tanky, more initiation kind of thing, or it can actually go for a little bit more AP. We could get the Runic Echoes, you can get more like Void Staff, that kind of thing, if you actually want to, if you get far enough ahead, if you have the snowball going for your favor. So it doesn't leave them as only having one option of the double carry. It actually gives them a little bit more room to work with.
I don't know what you've been watching, but if the day I see a Gragas build Void Staff, that is the day I will be ready to die. So, I mean, I guess if Vortex just never wants to hear me cast again, he can go ahead and build that as a first item and just end it all right now. But on the flip side of things, I actually really like this. The Caitlyn steal away here by Ventus, and probably will put mechanics back on the Ashe once more, but that does get Ventus the favorable matchup in theory, although Karma will definitely swing that, because Janna's not going to bring much of anything to the 2v2.
No, they are pretty much just having the Janna for the disengage, trying to see if they can get someone like Vortex or Gruntless Gary out of the fight. But yeah, I know what you're oohing about. We have that Ezreal being locked in for mechanics.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of that pick, and I think Ezreal into the Caitlyn in this 2v2 is going to have a much better time than we've seen in the past. You know, if Roz had gone for something more aggressive like a Zyra perhaps, would have actually absolutely just blown these two out of the water right here, but Karma definitely going to be much stronger than the Janna, and will actually allow this Ezreal to get that early shove, to allow him to be the one throwing out Mystic Shots and poking underneath the turret, rather than him taking the brunt of this Caitlyn damage to fly on through.
So gonna help out a little bit. They have a really good poke lane coming in from that Ezreal Karma. Gonna really punish the pickup of that Janna, but also does allow them a little bit more of the Janna, at least, allows a little bit more of that disengage for if we see Vortex going to that bot lane. That's probably the only reason they picked it. They just want to try to scale into that late game. They want to try to see if they can get there, but they picked someone like the Syndra for the mid lane for Starforger alongside of that Lee Sin, meaning they have a really strong mid game as well.
Yeah, I really like what the side of Divinity has done right here in this draft. It feels fairly well-rounded. Again, the only champion that I might disagree with a little bit will be the Janna, but she's really just there to try and thwart the engage potential of a teleport flank by the Poppy, or Vortex jumping on in there with the Gragas. And protecting a backline duo of Syndra Caitlyn, that's a pretty strong two-man right there to try and keep afloat. But at the same time, you know, Dominator, he's on his Orianna once more, and if he can have an impacting performance, that Orianna Shockwave is going to be devastating in fights.
So long as we don't see him going down at least at level 1 again, getting Starforger a little bit of that snowball. But at the same time, we have seen that Donut Dominator can play from behind. He can turn things around and in the mid to late game. So we will have to see how things are going to play out here on the Rift as we get into our 3-minute delay. We're going to throw things over to the sponsors, so guys, go give them a shout out.
What's going on?
We're in the middle of an epic car chase.
Is that why you're moving in slow motion?
Epic car chases are always done in slow motion.
That's a bit cliche. Going for a donut.
Donuts.
Smart.
The moment the juice gently drips down your patty. When your taste buds meet real wholesome meat, that's when you know you're in a point of no return. You realize you're lost in the pleasures only a true meal can offer. You're lost, but you sure as hell don't want to be found. Hugo's Burger Bar. Let's burger like never before.
Life's about looking for little moments of happiness.
Moments when we come out of the cold and into the welcoming warmth. Delicious leisurely mornings or long lazy afternoons where we dream sweet dreams and take the time to finally be ourselves.
When you find these little moments of happiness, life becomes irresistible, a journey to be enjoyed. And Costa is there with you, every sip of the way.
All right, guys, welcome back into the GO&FUN esports tournament here at gamers.com.mt. We're about to get into game number 3 between the Raving Raptors and Divinity to find out who is going to make it to the semifinals and who is going to have to go to the losers bracket.
Right, it all does come down to this, and as such, we're not going to have the massive bloodbath that we started off with last time around in game number 1, but it is going to be a very interesting series to watch, because unlike the last one, that was so much about split push and, you know, getting people on the team fighters and the good, strong duelists in the side lanes, this is all about the 5v5. We have countless interactions of just multiple tanks. It's all about keeping Mechanics, Dominator, Starforger, Ventus afloat in these team fights, and I really do think they're going to see a heavy mid to bot focus in this one.
You're going to have to keep our eye out on especially the bot lane. You ever get someone like a Caitlyn rolling, especially if you can get them through that mid-game power trough that everyone talks about, how she does struggle a little bit until she gets some of that crit items. You could definitely see the side of Divinity being able to take this one. But on the flip side, someone like Mechanics has shown that he is great at carrying his team, and you have to fear what he can do, especially with someone like the Ezreal, who he's going to look for that good poke and the good engages.
I mean, I guess the question is, we've seen him on a lot of these strong auto attackers, but now he's on the Ezreal, much higher skill ceiling on this champion, so he has to be even more impressive to actually wind up pulling this off. Although I think he's definitely set up for success here in the 2 versus 2. It is going to be a favorable matchup for him. And, you know, if he's not punished in this early game, once he, you know, gets his Triforce, starts working towards his Blade of the Ruined King, he is going to be a very, very happy camper.
Exactly. But you gotta be careful of the disengage that can come in from someone like Janna. Janna is someone who definitely gets abused and pushed around early in the game. She doesn't really bring much to the table outside of shields and disengage from her tornadoes. But once we get to these later game team fights, that's where she's really going to be able to pop off. And so Mechanics has to make sure that he never gets caught out by any sort of tornado or gets hit back by the monster. So now we get to see exactly the strength of the bot lane that Mechanics and Dexalute do have with that Ezreal Karma. They're getting a nice shove on, as we do see the power that Elysian brings to the table. The fact that he's going for that push, he gets the clear really quickly, the 3 camp start that you usually do see. While on the flip side, we actually see that Vortex is going for more of a 4 camp start. So it makes it so that KMS going for that invade on his jungle is actually not going to be as impressive as it would have been had the Gragas started on the red buff.
Yeah, I mean, it's still going to be effective. He's going to snag away that Gromp for himself unless it's reciprocated by Vortex. Should have that 1 camp advantage. The more interesting thing was actually Starforger just immediately rushing out of that mid lane. It's not like he did any trading or anything of the sorts. No, he was more mimicking the old style of Rise, where you just start with the Sapphire Crystal, hard shove 3 waves and recall to finish your tier. But in this case, he just wants those double Dorans to dominate in this lane even harder, and he's dead even in gold.
Yeah, but in the bot lane, we have the engage going on to Ventus, still not getting any sort of summoners out of that Caitlyn. And then in the top lane, Gruntless Gary gotten an engage with Transparent that he honestly really didn't want to take.
There's not too much more that Vortex actually could have done right there. I think the only thing I'm a little surprised about would be KMS going once more for the invade in this top side jungle, because he should have been able to scout that one out last time around and still know that the wolves were not up and available. But he is showing that he recognizes when Vortex is on the other side of the map and still wants to make plays across the map to try and find the advantage off of some of the time that Vortex has been wasting, and that's manifested itself in a sizable experience lead for KMS. Vortex will hit level 4 after those Krugs, but KMS is up about a camp and a half right now.
The one thing that does surprise me, though, is that KMS didn't put a ward, say, over in the Wolves or in that side of the quadrant of the jungle in order to really be able to go, hey, if we do see Vortex in the top lane, we can make a play in the bot lane or make a play around that dragon.
I think that he's just a greedy Lee Sin player and wants that for the mobility. That's one of the best things actually about a Lee Sin gank, is that you don't have to burn your Sonic Wave immediately, that you can use a ward to hop on top of your opponent, slow them down with your E, cripple them, and then actually follow up after you see them burn the flash. And one of the reasons why you'll see Lee Sins hold on to that so often. I mean, it even continues throughout the game, even if they do go for a Tracker's Knife, more often than not, they'll still stick with the yellow trinket, just so they have the maximum mobility at all times.
Very true, very true. Like you had mentioned, probably a greedier play instead of trying to go for the more team-centric sort of style, wanting to get that vision for his team. But in the end, if you get kills for yourself, that is probably just as important as getting vision, as we see Donut Dominator getting engaged on the Ignite already going in, as well as that Exhaust, but Vortex was in the area, going to be able to stop that dive, that gank going on to Donut Dominator.
Okay.
That was
awkward. Oh, but top laners are here.
Yeah, Transparent did roam down. The flash coming in from Starforger, who had the he did have the Unleashed power, so he went for that with Gruntless Gary trying to go in with that heroic charge. Gonna get a lot of damage. First blood picked up by Vortex onto KMS. He was just a little too greedy. No mana on Starforger. They're gonna try to run him down, but Transparent's just going to do a good job in body blocking for now, unless he has to flash out. The heroic charge flash getting him really low. Buckler will secure the kill, so 2 kills going over to the side of the Raving Raptors.
Messy, messy, messy right there from both sides, but really it was Divinity that overextended into the enemy jungle. Starforger didn't quite have the mana to finish off Dominator, who actually leveled up right as that Unleashed power was hitting him, so even got a little bit of bonus health. Try and soak up the damage from that one right there, and that's got to be a fantastic start here for the Raptors, who have been looking good in the early game across this entire series, but after the throw DC issues last time around, if they fall behind in the early game, you gotta sort of question if they had the fortitude to pull on back.
Well, that is something that is gonna remain to see if Divinity can come back. It isn't like they're down too far. Still only 7 minutes into the game. We do have another disconnect. Could be done dominated. No, it looks like it's actually Vortex this time.
Vortex, it's a plague over in the Raving Raptors camp right there. It's killing everyone at the moment.
Literally.
Literally. Except it didn't kill Vortex, because he's fine.
But it killed everyone. Literally, because, you know, no one's moving.
No, that just means they're in like frozen state right now. What is that? Cryosis or something like that? I can't think of the name.
A cryogenic state.
Cryogenic. There we go.
But at the same time, you have to ask yourself, are you really alive at that point?
Yeah, because like this, when you get unfrozen, you're alive again. That's how it works. Just look at Lysandra.
But isn't that just bringing yourself back to life?
No.
Because think about it. If you're frozen, your heart stopped. Your brain is no longer functioning. So therefore, you are not alive because you aren't actually having anything going on in your body. But then when you're revived or later on, when your heart starts working again, technically, aren't you brought back from the dead? Technically, you're a zombie at that point.
You know, that's a little philosophical, but I'd count it as being alive because, you know, if you come out of it and like, cause like what, can people die during? I don't even know. I don't know about the science. I'm not here for science, man.
You're here for League of Legends.
Han Solo, Star Wars. He wasn't dead.
It says he was very clearly dead. He was frozen in carbonite. He was no longer alive. They brought him back to life afterwards.
That means Kylo Ren is a zombie baby.
Yes.
That changes everything.
Yes, he is. He is literally the definition of evil now.
Now we know why he's so messed up, dude.
Exactly. Hey, yeah, you would be messed up if you're a zombie baby too. Imagine how your brain works. It doesn't.
Who says I'm not?
Anyways, we look at how things are playing up on the Rift here in this game, and we get to see that there's some good control wars on the top side of the map by the Raving Raptors, which should give them a little bit of a leeway on knowing where KMS is. As long as they don't spot him out, they're going to know that he's probably towards the bot side, where the Lee Sin's going to want to play anyways.
Yeah, both teams really do want to play around that bot to mid, although, you know, we had a lot of summoners blown from both Starforger and Donut Dominator. Neither of them took something, you know, really defensive. I guess Donut Dominator would be the closest with the exhaust right there, and that is still up, so he can try and survive through the burst of the Syndra, but still, he's got such good vision around that middle lane that he's going to be relatively safe for the time being.
Exactly. Just play towards the top side, be able to be like, okay, as long as I'm playing up here, I know Lee Sin's not going to be able to gank me unless I see him here, then I can back off instantly to my tower. But Lee Sin shouldn't be wanting to play to the top side anyways. We even see where he's at right now. He's pathing towards that bot lane.
Yeah, not going to be easy to gank a Karma, but it's just Mantor E plus an Ezreal who can just jump on out of there. But what that does do is give good knowledge, good vision, so Vortex can come for a potential counter, and even Donut Dominator, who didn't recall like his opposing mid laner did.
Yeah, getting another back end from Starforger. That is, what, his third back, I think, this game, because he backed really early on, got the second Doran's Blade, then
died.
And then,
or he didn't die, but there was the skirmish, yeah.
There's a skirmish, then he backed there, and then backing again right here. He's gone back a lot and not really gotten too much for himself because of it.
Yeah, speaking of recalling a lot, Mechanics, that was his second recall of the game. He went back for a tier, then recalled for a Manamune, while Ventus has just been farming up a Storm in the bottom lane. He has almost 3,000 gold in his pocket. I can't even wait to see what he builds. Oh my lord!
Instantly getting that rune-ons. It makes sense for, I will say, it makes sense for the Lee Sin, because getting that tier stacked up really quickly is kind of like the whole Rise thing, where you want to back off really quickly to get that tier stacked up. But for Ventus, okay, but then Ventus sold it all.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot more.
Yeah, I
because,
agree with that more too.
I mean, I think the logic behind the Rune-ons would have been to try and swing this bot lane matchup so they could actually shove in this Karma Ezreal, but even then it was probably going to be a relatively difficult task, and that draws away so much of Caitlyn's power here in the laning phase, because you don't need the attack speed in the actual lane phase.
Right. And it would make it so that her Piltover Peacemakers are not even Peacemakers, they're more just like little tickle fights.
She's just shooting out yellow flag or white flags at that point.
Literally, that is actually more akin to the name of it than it is literally a Peacemaker. It's just, hey, let's have peace, not war. I don't want to hurt you. Please don't hurt me.
I think the idea of the Peacemaker is that it just kills your opponents, and that creates the peace.
But is that really peace? Isn't that war at this point?
No, that's fascism.
Well, I guess to each their own in regards to that. What is actually peace? KMS getting himself locked down. We get a teleport coming in from both Gruntless Fury and now from Transparent.
You just gave him a stun!
Yeah, they gave him a free stun. Transparent by himself having to flash out of there. Vortex going to see if he can get the explosive cast onto anybody. Not going to. The depth charge going to land onto Vortex, who's very, very squishy. Here's Jonah Dominator going to help with disengaging, as we did see Starforger roaming down there as well.
These fights are messy all across the board. Just individual misplays across that, if they weren't going to happen, could have easily resulted in kills right there, but still feels like the Raptors maintain their pressure across the map, and at least for that is going to be a victory for them. And they do come in the Summoner War as well. It was only Dexalute using his flash compared to the top jungle from Divinity that cost their own, and I think actually on your minimap, Donut Dominator and Gruntless Fury were trying to set up a pick, but now they're just going into Starforger, it seems.
Yeah, they're gonna go for him, but he did have at least a little bit of knowledge, not knowing where the Poppy was at the moment. I actually probably thought it was Vortex, fearing that Vortex was nearby and just like, hey, I'll back off, I'll play to the top side since everyone was bot, and it was a better call for him. He got out of there very safe.
Alright, just look at all this defensive warding by the Raving Raptors, and that is probably the most impressive thing we've seen from them over the course of this entire series. They have had very, very good vision for the most part, and that's what's really keeping themselves safe here in the laning phase. Remember, nothing has happened since that 3 versus 3 around the mid lane a couple of minutes ago. Since then, it's all been about this sort of scaling game, and the Raptors, Divinity, both sort of just waiting until they can get their next big item before anything breaks out here.
Though, prompts to the side of Divinity for farming up very effectively. Despite being down those 2 kills, they are only down about 400 gold. They haven't gotten themselves behind at all. You mentioned the pressure on the map, still even for both teams. So Divinity definitely looking to try to find a fight here soon. Though, Transparent getting caught out. Good depth charge. Dredge line going to keep him safe. But the explosive cast, trying to see if it can do anything to this Nautilus, who is actually going to be possibly dove. Does take a lot of damage and will fall to the Hammer Shock. Ventus now in a lot of trouble in the bot lane, forced to heal. That is a great trade coming from Mechanics. A very late Monsoon coming in from Roz. Now Mechanics continuing to go in. He wants to get the double kill onto the Jenna, who finally flashes away. Flash coming in from Mechanics. He picks up another kill. 2 kills in a 3v2.
Yeah, remember the question I asked earlier? Can Mechanics still pull off his impressive feats on the Ezreal? That answer is yes. That was a 2 versus 3 right there, and I don't know a better way to sum up how I feel about Janna than what does she do right there. You have a Lee Sin coming in trying to do all the crowd control. Janna's like, heal, take a shield. I'm not even going to use the exhaust, and that costs them so much because it really is a 2v2 with a shield bot on the side, and the Raptors are able to turn that around to propel themselves to a pretty sizable advantage.
As well as holding on to the Monsoon until it was too late, not even able to save Ventus from Mechanics, who was just popping off there. Misplays all across the board from the bot lane coming in from Divinity. They needed to play that one a little bit cleaner and give a lot more respect to the damage that Mechanics already brings to the table.
Absolutely, and now it really does feel like the Raptors can decide what they want to do in this game. With Gary's TP coming up very, very shortly, they can once again try to make a play around this bottom side of the map, maybe even try to force their hands around this Ocean Drake, get that really good early game dragon for themselves, and with a very strong 2v2 in the bottom lane, they can absolutely try to go for these plays.
Yeah, and an important thing to note is that we did see the first tower going down in the top lane, picked up by Vortex. He actually got all that solo gold for himself. So he has a huge lead in gold over his opponent of KMS, having nearly 1,000 gold alone for just the two people right there. Which begs the question, what is KMS doing in this game, and how does he finally get himself back into the game where he can look like how he did in game 2?
Well, I mean, he's just been continuing to try and gank for this bottom lane, and clearly that isn't the area he needs to go to. I would have much rather actually like to see him focus around this mid lane where you have all the burst from a Syndra, and you actually have gank setup. Syndra can land the stun, Donut Dominator isn't running a cleanse, so that could be very, very effective. And once you burn the flash once, that Orianna is so dangerous. She's so vulnerable to a potential gank. The Dragon's Rage from Lee Sin 2 going to be incredibly powerful in a gank, and they probably win every 2 versus 2. Lee Sin Syndra, I'd give the edge over Gragas Orianna.
Yeah, and talking about the Gragas though, he has gone for a little bit more of that AP-centric build, going for the Runic Echoes, as well as probably pathing into what looks like an Iceborne Gauntlet later on. Is that like a standard thing to see when a Gragas gets ahead like this?
Yeah, it's fairly standard. I think the most common would be a Dead Man's Plate straight after the Runic Echoes, just to, you know, skittle your way across the map a little bit faster. But this, when you're up against 2 physical damage dealers, going to be effective. It's going to give him a little bit more burst damage, and when he's trying to focus down someone like Starforger or Ventus, it will be good.
But doesn't it make him really squishy going into these engages, especially against someone like Starforger?
Yes, it gives him less HP, but you also, at the same time, you have to realize if Starforger is ulting Vortex, he's already succeeded in the game, because that means that Mechanix is able to just get free damage off in the fights. Donut Dominator's going to be feeling very good as well, and I mean, he's got a lot of shields, too. He's got a Karma Orianna. You know the ball is going to be on him when they're trying to start off a team fight. So if he is going for these resistances right now, even though he doesn't have the HP to back it up, he has these shields to sort of pull the weight that he's missing as far as health is concerned.
Very true. So gonna have to see exactly how Vortex plays around this Dragon start that came in from KMS, who's now gonna take a good chunk of damage from that.
Yeah, Ocean Drake, probably the worst one to get caught actually doing. Even though it doesn't deal the most damage to you, that fat slow it drops can be really, really frustrating. And Lee Sin, he's able to easily dodge away from there. I think he actually used a ward to hop on out, but still not something you want to be caught doing. And they don't really have the proper vision. They don't have any control wards in the pit to make sure that he was perfectly safe going for that play.
Yeah, but speaking of Lee Sin, he's pathed towards that Balmy Cinder, and looks like he's going to go for a Cinder Hulk as opposed to going for that Warriors.
I think that's gross on the Lee Sin, honestly. Much rather have some AD, but he's going for a fight.
Look at the damage!
Yep.
Just blown up completely. Now in the bot lane, they have the exhaust onto Ventus. Here comes the monster trying to heal them up. The exhaust was used onto Mechanix from Raz. He's taking a lot of damage though. And trying to see if he can turn it around, but the heal coming in from Ventus is going to heal them up really greatly. Vortex in the back line, going to try to see if he can do anything, but in the mid lane, Donut Dominator gets killed by Starforger. Ventus not dropping in the bot lane after all.
Yeah, the mid lane's so unfortunate right there, because they had just gotten the kill onto KMS. That should have put Donut Dominator in a very good position, but he still didn't have the ultimate, and Starforger had his unleashed power, had the ignite too, and just caught Donut Dominator a little bit off guards. And this draws back to what I was saying earlier. Had KMS just focused this mid lane right off the bat, it would have been going even better for them. Not just this 20 CS lead, but maybe even that turret at the same time. And the Cinder Hulk basically just turns him into a kick bot.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that build either. I do prefer seeing Lee Sin go for that early to mid game power spike with that Warriors and then building Tinky later into the game, but they seem like they're not confident enough on KMS's ability to carry, but they will get themselves an Ocean Drake as a consolation prize for the map.
Yeah, it's going to be very effective on them as well, especially when they had been, especially in this bottom lane, getting pushed in pretty consistently. Now, all of a sudden, you can sustain a little bit better. Not that Caitlyn's ever going to be hurting in that department with Doran's Shield and Warlord's Bloodlust that she goes for pretty much every single time. But now I like Raving Raptors trying to take some things into their own hands here, going a little bit more proactive, and right off the bat of a recall too. That is the cost of taking the Ocean Drake, is that you recall later and give up a big opportunity to lose that turret.
Plus, the two Sheens coming in from both Mechanics and Vortex really melted through the health bar of that structure, made it so they can take it even quicker, which means, I don't think it means, I think it's something that was not respected by the side of Divinity. They didn't really expect to have that much burst potential on a structure without anything like a Mountain Drake for the side of Raving Raptors.
Absolutely, and now I want to see what the Raptors actually do here, because the game is going to get into this position where it really does stall out. Their composition isn't necessarily fantastic at forcing team fights, unless Divinity missed position pretty horrendously, and at the same time their 1-3-1 isn't very good, and sieging going to be quite difficult at the same exact time. So we may get into a situation for the next 4 or 5 minutes until the next dragon spawns, nothing really happens.
And the next dragon is a Mountain Drake, so something that would be wanting to be taken by the side of the Raving Raptors, who will have a hard time with sieging, but if they're able to burst down structures, able to burst down objectives, gonna really help them out with their clear lack of wave clear coming in from everyone outside of Donut Dominator.
I mean, I think for them at least. Oh, Dominator!
Yeah, Donut Dominator got engaged on, taking very low Vortex, not able to connect anyone with that explosive cast, as well as having to use the True Shot Barrage from Mechanics just to scare off the side of Divinity.
Yeah, you can see all the shields immediately went onto Dominator. So Vortex, he still takes quite a bit of damage. It's going to be pretty impossible to force fights again without Gary getting a flank onto a couple of these members right here, and it's going to be interesting because really the best opportunity for RVR. This could be trouble.
Very low. That is the Dragon Rage onto Vortex. I am very questioning. You built this CC bot sort of Lee Sin, and you don't go in to try to get Mechanics.
Yeah, I guess so. And another issue with not building warriors, you don't have the CDR element to your build, and Lee Sin is a champion that it's very difficult to itemize effectively into CDR unless you go for the warrior and maybe even a black cleaver, something along those lines here. So that ulti, which is typically sitting around 60 seconds when you are having a good game as Lee Sin, is not going to be up for quite some time, and it really is the biggest playmaking ability on Divinity's side.
I believe it's at like 85 seconds right now, so a whole 25 extra seconds actually could be the key deciding factor in some of these team fights, as we have Vortex. He's looking for the likes of Ventus, but just going to zone him away so his team can go for a good amount of pressure in the mid lane with Transparent flanking, but he had no one to really follow up. That charge going to be onto Mechanics. He kind of caught out. Exhaust coming in onto him. Flash in from Transparent. They're trying to lock down Donut Dominator. The explosive cast only going to knock in that Nautilus, but now they're trying to see if they can get the shockwave onto two members. KMS taking very
Whoa,
low.
Mechanics!
Completely deleted by that unleashed power. Gotta respect the damage. Dexel is going to be the next target. Ventus able to pick up that kill. Gruntless Gary not able to find his way into the fight at all. So the whole time it was truly just a 4v5.
So many opportunities for the Raving Raptors to back away from that fight, to not opt in, but they went for it anyways, and it absolutely ended up costing them right there. I mean, everyone's going to blame Mechanics for jumping into Starforger, but he was probably dead anyways, right? The unleashed power was already on him, so he was just trying to burst as much as he possibly could on through right there. But the biggest issue is Gary. He has TP. He could have flanked so much sooner, just got out-rotated by Transparent, and by the time he actually wound up showing up to that skirmish, his team was dead. They're already backing away and they lost the tower.
Yeah, Gruntless Gary needs to try to make his way much quicker into these fights. Otherwise, his team is just going to continue to lose these fights. 4v5, not going to work out when you're this close in gold. It's now less than 1,000 gold in favor of the Raving Raptors, which is very minimal, seeing as they have one tower over the side of Divinity.
I mean, That's almost the value of a turret. I don't know if they have the damage to kill this Poppy once more. It's sort of hilarious.
Not with Lee Sin's build. Not with that kind of build. You're not gonna even 2v1, even with Janna pathing up that way. You have no damage on your side unless you have someone like Ventus or Starforger. You're not gonna kill the Poppy.
Absolutely, and again, these compositions only having 2 damage sources means that picks onto either of the 2 carries, might sound like I'm a broken record, will drastically swing the outcomes of these team fights. And going back to before, these objective fights are where the Raptors will find the majority of their strength. When Divinity is running into them, and the Raptors are able to kite away around an objective like the Mountain Drake coming up. And I would really like to see them rotate down there and shift their focus to that neutral objective rather than continuing to try and brute force this tower down.
Yeah, 'cause they just don't have that wave clear that you really want to have when you're trying to go into the comp that has been brought to the table by the side of Divinity. Caitlyn, Syndra, they're going to be able to clear out things so quickly compared to the likes of an Ezreal and an Orianna.
There is a window here for Divinity to try and take this Mountain Drake, but they don't realize that Mechanic's actually recalled. Although, if we do go for a 5v5, by the time Mechanic shows up, he is going to be much more powerful than he was the last time. With a Hex Drinker, he can try to survive the burst just a little bit, and that might be what we're heading into right now.
Yeah, Gruntless Gary being quote-unquote caught out, but he is also the Poppy. We talked about how he's not damage in these fights. So he, I think, took a total of 50 damage in that whole exchange. The shields are just absolutely incredible for the side of the Raving Raptors.
Right, and Mechanic's picked up the red buff too, so we can try and poke a little bit more with his Mystic shots, but we need them to go for a fight now. Gruntless, seen his go in.
Gruntless Gary, way too late for that. Vortex almost taken out, but the Redemption's going to come in to keep him a little bit healthy. Gruntless Gary finally comes in for the flank as that Dragon is at about 40% health.
They just need to go mid lane. Don't go for the team fight. This is really awkward. Vortex is so
Gonna
low.
be the depth charge onto Vortex. They're gonna try to lock down that Grog. It's not gonna be enough. With the ace in the hole also coming in.
Mid.
They need to go for mid, but they're not gonna steal that. It is secured by KMS, and they don't get themselves an objective at all on the map. They don't rotate well enough. They're getting way too out-rotated by the side of Divinity, who are playing from the back, who are playing from a deficit. The side of Raving Raptors, they really gotta step up their communication.
And just step up the decision making. Even that shockwave too. Like, what does that actually do?
Dominator, he got himself caught out, completely deleted by Star. There goes your wave clear.
That's so devastating now for the Raving Raptors, and the HP bars are low enough. There's minions in the side waves that likely Divinity don't search for anything else off of the back of that play, but there's so many issues for the Raving Raptors. They're just looking at that approach to the Dragon, and at the same time, Divinity playing it very calm. They stuck around, they kept that Dragon down to around 2000 HP, not bursting it down, fearing the potential steal of Vortex, and by the time they saw him starting to back away, they were able to secure it, not being scared about the potential collapse of Gruntless Gary, because if the Poppy runs at you from that angle, they could potentially just turn straight onto her.
I think that was a big problem that the Raving Raptors had, that Gruntless Gary went to the bot lane when the side of Divinity started up the Dragon. The moment you see them starting up the Dragon, you need to start rotating back towards your team. Not for the flank, but just to be with your team so you can go for a full-on engage that they should have actually been able to win. Jump onto Ventus or jump onto Starforger. There you go. You've just won the fight, but they didn't do that. They waited too long. Gruntless Gary didn't go for that grouping up and instead went for the flank that did not pay off at all in the long run.
Well, what the Raptors really should have done right there was just had both sides engage at the same exact time. If you have Vortex jumping in, drawing the attention of Divinity, then all of a sudden, maybe Gruntless Gary is able to boot Ventus or boot Starforger out of that team fight. But because Vortex went in early and got bursted down to like 10% HP, that meant that if Gruntless Gary was going to go in, he was going to be by himself, and there was no other frontliner to step up to the plate with him. And as such, he could never quite pull the trigger on that engagement.
Very true, very true. But now we get to see how the side of Divinity are going to play with the little bit of the lead they have. I think that's the first time this game that they've actually had the lead. So they've been winning the fights before that with a deficit. How do they start translating this lead into closing out the game?
Well, it's going to start with just regaining complete control over the map. We're past 30 minutes now, so they can potentially look around that Baron buff. There's also a top lane outer turret still available for them to pick up. But right now it feels like they're very focused on keeping this mid lane outer alive. They really do want that. But at the same time, they're sharing CS between Starforger and Ventus, which is quite a bit awkward at the moment because you really want both those guys to be scaling up to be, you know, powerhouses for the rest of this game.
Yeah, need to keep, especially I'd say Ventus. You want to keep him going up hard because Starforger's doing quite all right, having 3 kills to his name. Going to be able to completely obliterate anybody on the side, outside of, I'd say, Gartless Gary on the side of the Raving Raptors. Though there has now been that Hex Trigger picked up by Mechanics, so he is trying to survive a little bit of that burst that Starforger is bringing to the table.
Divinity's objective control is very good. I'm a little bit disappointed that they're sort of stalling this game out right now, because if they were to just simply set up around that Baron, first of all, you have a massive minion wave at the top lane. Like, use that.
Oh boy.
The
flash coming in onto Starforger. That's the person you need to get. Dexalute barely hanging on. The shields were key. That is a key pickup for the side of the Raving Raptors.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no wave clear here. Ventus was farming the Krugs in the top lane, not even trying to trade tower for tower, and the Raptors, are they going to go for something really desperate right here? They know there's only one DPS source up and available for Ventus. They're taking the honey fruits, and they're going to be starting off this Baron buff.
Yeah, but KMS has himself a Banshee's Veil. He will be able to jump in there and try to not get locked down too quickly. Gotta be careful with this really hard and risky engage. Sure, it's a 4v5, but you're being taken pretty low.
Yeah, they just want the team fight, I think. Vortex is going for it.
Yeah, he is going for it. They're going to engage on to Transparent. Here comes the Jet Charge. Not going to be able to lock anyone down for too long. The Baron has been canceled by the side of the Raving Raptors, but the Raving Raptors now rotating towards this mid lane.
I think it was a nice idea by the Raptors. They knew that they wanted to try and force a fight. I don't know if Transparent wanted that one necessarily, though.
No, he's taking a lot of damage, going to get locked down repeatedly, but they get the good kick onto Gruntless Gary. They're trying to see if they can kill off that tank. Here comes the Unleashed Power, going to pick it up for Starforger. The re-engage with a 3-man shockwave, but it's not followed up at all. The explosive cast used just to disengage the fight, while Raving Raptors have to limp back to their base and figure out exactly what they want to do.
Right, the Raptors need to play these fights slow, allow Mechanics to land a lot of Mystic shots, and that's one of the issues here. Sure, the Shockwave is going to do a ton of damage, but there's no actual follow-up afterwards. You don't have a Runon's Hurricane AD carry that can hit 3 targets at the same exact time. No, it's Mechanics. He's only going to be able to hit one person, one by one here, and that ends up costing them potentially a kill right there. But again, I think the play as a whole was a good idea for them because they got the pick onto Starforger. Now they just need to actually make it mean something, potentially around this dragon that's spawning on up here.
Yeah, gonna be a second Mountain Drake. If it's picked up by the side of Divinity, gonna give them a lot more control over these objectives. So if you're Raving Raptors, you need to start making a play for this and really start making it so that you can burst this down and not give this over willingly to the Divinity squad.
Yeah, Transparent doesn't really want to use this TP. He's just roaming down right here. That could be a steal.
Ooh, but it is secured by KMS. Vortex having to sacrifice his life for that. There comes the swag in from KMS.
Yeah, unfortunate right there. And with your jungler going down 2 Mountain Drakes, that's going to be a pretty easy Baron when all is said and done here for Divinity. Donut Dominator can't recall. Dexalute can't recall because the Baron will go down. They just need to start it up.
Yeah, they are going to start it up, going to get pinged out by that blue trinket, but the 2 Mountain Drakes should make it so that by the time we see Dexalute and Dominator get there, it's gone. Sure, it might get traded for that mid lane tower. No, and it won't even get traded for the mid lane tower. Huge misstep coming in from the side of the Raving Raptor squad. They're looking completely out of sorts, not knowing at all how to play from this deficit.
Yeah, they just do it way too fast to react right there. And circling back to Vortex's build, you were concerned he didn't have enough HP. He went Banshee's Veil for a 3rd item. That gives you not a whole lot of HP. It's primarily magic resistance, so he is crumbling in these fights. You saw him just burst in half a second when he went underneath for the Dragon steal away, and he's itemizing into more MR. Right? If he goes a Guardian's Angel, I almost think that's a bad choice. Not because it's bad to revive in a team fight, but because he still has no HP whatsoever to make his resistances effective.
Exactly, and not to mention, he has very little MR. He only has armor coming in from the Iceborne Gauntlet. He's sure it will give him something, but it's not really that impactful, like you said, without the HP. So Ventus is going to be able to burst right through him, having himself the armor pen from that last Whisper as well, making it so that it's virtually meaningless that Vortex is even bringing that to the table.
I think the best thing here for the Raptors is that they don't really have to worry about a split push. Transparent has no kill threat onto Gruntless Gary whatsoever, so once more it will come down to a big 5 versus 5 team fight, but into the Baron, into this Caitlyn Syndra siege, you gotta believe that it is going to be so incredibly difficult here for the Raptors to deal with, and it'll be up to Donut Dominator for the ball placement. Whoa!
But that's going to be a 3-man Shockwave. Ventus, they're going to try to jump on him, but is going to keep him alive. Redemption also helped the heal up mechanics. The Shockwave not able to be followed up at all by the side of Raven
Well,
Raptors.
Vortex just missed the explosive cast. It did not connect right there, and that is absolutely massive. Because the Shockwave pulled them in, the cast went way wide. He didn't expect that to come in immediately. The synergy just not there between the jungler and the mid laner of the Raptors, and now without the threat of a Shockwave, Ventus can walk up freely to smack away at this inhibitor.
For the Shockwave or the explosive cast, both of them being down like you had mentioned, gonna allow so much pressure over to the side of Divinity, who are proving that when they get a lead, when they're able to claw their way back in, they know how to out macro the likes of the Raving Raptors.
And watch these side waves too. The minions just crashing in, layering up against these turrets. Because the overall levels for Divinity are higher, the minions will go ahead and fly into those turrets in the side lanes. It's working out wonders for them. They just went from lane to lane to lane to pick up all these standing turrets outside of the Raptors base, and they might be looking for more if the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah, ballooning their lead from just under 2,000 to now almost 6,000 gold in their favor. Once they get this tower, it will be 6,000. They're going to go for a fight. Donut Dominator having the depth charge. They blocked him down. They burst him out. Ventus getting himself another kill. Transparent just going to be able to zone away the rest of the members of the Raving Raptors, who have no idea how they want to get back into this. The explosive cast does not affect Starforger and Ventus, but they don't care. Vortex is too squishy. Here comes another depth charge, going to lock down mechanics on the outside of the fight, while that inhibitor will fall. Divinity are cracking open the base.
Yeah, with Dominator down, team fighting is impossible. There's just no follow-up off of anything, out of any play that the Raving Raptors try to make right there. KMS, we question his build, but him and Transparent make up just an unkillable frontline wall that allows Ventus to get so much damage off the backline. Just 3.5 item Caitlyn absolutely dealing tons of damage right here, and with that inhibitor going down, the game becomes so easy here from the Raving Raptors, and they have got to be confident, looking like they're the team to make it to the semis.
Yeah, which is surprising because Raving Raptors had left the group stage undefeated. They were doing great and looking keen to just be one of the top competitors in the entire playoffs, but now falling apart to the likes of Divinity, showing that they have weaknesses, and Divinity can claw their way back in from the 2 seed and try to see if they can get further and further in these playoffs.
And I think it's fair to say that the group stages don't feel like they have a whole lot of meaning. If you make it out, you are going to be a good team, because the skill disparity in the groups was just so massive that, you know, sure, maybe Divinity got grouped up with a very strong first place seed and are really just showing their true form right now, and it is looking really good right here as they are, again, just pushing forward, maybe waiting for that Elder Dragon to spawn, because with that, that's going to be a lot of true damage. A lot of true damage, just make them even stronger.
They've even proven that they understand how to play in best of threes, where they had a very abysmal first game. They looked very shoddy, and it looked like it was going to be a clean 2-0 coming in from the Raving Raptors. But they adapted. They learned from that first game, and in game 2, They came in and they were able to get a nice victory in a very clean fashion that surprised many of us. But Mechanics, he is going to get bursted down, taken out before the redemption even falls. And in the backline, we see Donut Dominator getting completely engaged and wailed upon by Transparent. Gruntless Gary trying to see what he can do with the Shockwave, only hitting on the 2 tanky frontliners of Divinity. The backline gonna try to fight off Vortex, who has only resistances, no health, so he will fall. The base is going to be the next objective for the side of Divinity.
Yeah, they're just going to run it straight down into that bottom lane. Still, Donut Dominator is alive, but he doesn't have the Shockwave. Not having that key ability will make it ridiculously hard for him to hold on right here. The only thing the Raptors have going for them is that the Baron is down, but the minions are here, and that will be enough to keep on pressing forward for these Nexus Towers.
Yeah, Raving Raptors have to pull the trigger here in just a minute because their Nexus Towers are... Dex loot. That he gets taken out. Donut Dominator having to run back to his base. They're trying to wail away using the Monsoon to keep themselves healthy. Double kill for Starforger. Gruntless Gary not able to do anything. That is going to be the series picked up by Divinity.
Absolutely fun one to watch right there. 2 games in a row to pull it back for Divinity. And guys, I know it's late for you, so we're just going to wrap up the stream right here. But let me see some GGs for both of these teams in the chat because they gave it their all. They battled through so many different technical issues. And finally, in the longest game of this entire tournament, 40 minutes, I believe, might have been our longest thus far.
Yeah.
We're going to have to call that GG and see you next time.